Peace. Greetings to you all. It's your brother Naheem, BKA Lord Abba, aka Mr. Just the Facts. First and foremost, family, you already know, hit that like button, share the video out. We are having a discussion tonight. I'm going to touch on this, our plight in this country, and how the United States allowed freedmen to be persecuted. I'm not going to get super deep, but I'm going to touch on some things because the purpose of our platform is to teach and to try to raise up the next level of freedom fighters so that we can carry this thing forward. Right now, we don't have a crop necessarily underneath us that's going to do that. We don't even have contemporaries who are, in my opinion, we don't have contemporaries that are here in this particular space for the purposes of moving this thing forward for our collective uplift and us as a people in general. What I see in this space a lot, outside of the usual grifters, are people that are doing things for their own self-aggrandizement, their own personal projects, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What we're doing here at BTP, as can be evinced by our consistent stand-up nature, our consistently bringing in a much-needed education to the people, is a throwback in a sense to the old freedmen. And I'm going to bring some of these freedmen up. What's this one brother's name, man? Hold on. I'm gonna get into some stuff today. I'm gonna definitely get into some stuff today. Let me see. Tell me I did not. Oh, there we go. The Nations from a Point of View by Harvey Johnson. I'm gonna read a quote from that book because that's a book that we're gonna be getting into in the very near future. Again, make sure you hit the like button. If you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you can be informed every time Be the Power goes live. So you could become a part of the notification nation and get in on this dynamic content that we're producing, because at the end of the day, when the dust settles and the smoke clears and all of those cliches, we are, those of us that are in this circle of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen and Be the Power, we are going to undoubtedly be the last one standing. So make sure you share the video out, click like, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I'm going to start. Matter of fact, let me give some shout outs. BTP Riri, what's going on, sis? BTP Riri is in the building. That's right. Make sure y'all hit the like button, share this link, subscribe to the channel, tap the bell to stay notified, support this channel via a cash app, $ Be the Power. Sister Shanna, what's going on? Shout out to all of the BTP mods and all members of the channel. Cash 504. What's good, fam? I already see you. It's good to have my family from New Orleans in the building. In fact, that book that I just cited comes from my bro in New Orleans. My bro in New Orleans. Shout out to my brother Grim. Shout out to my brother Logic. Shout out to the BTP brothers, Ali, Josh, Ibrahim. You already know. Shout out Sister Satra Del Reed 360. The Freedmen are on deck. We are streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Peace, Sister April. I see you in the building. Okay, where do I want to start with this? I think I'm going to start with, judicial construction. Shout out to Coop Farilla. I'm going to start this up with judicial construction and what that means, and I'm going to play some audio from Eric Foner's book, The Second Founding, and I'm going to play a bit of audio from The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. And like I said, I'm not going to get deep, but I'm going to talk about some things so we could get an understanding. My brother Jerome is in the building, Jerome Montgomery. Like we talk about day ones right now. Shout out to Hamels Projects, Far Rockaway, Queens. You know, I always shout my hood out. Let me see. All right, so this is what we're gonna do. Let's set this thing off. Make sure y'all hit that like button, fam. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Share the video out for me. We're trying to build up this particular channel right here. Viewership is kind of low, and it's cool. It's cool. We're not going to be streaming on the Be the Power main channel anymore. We're going to be streaming strictly on this channel. We're going to still be adding content on the Be the Power main channel. Iron Physique, what's going on? He says, greetings to the Freedmen family. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so let's get into this. All right. Let's get into the rule of construction, everything you need to know. So rules of construction pertains to policies and laws that the courts use to resolve disputes between parties within an agreement. When it comes to rule of construction, you should know there are times when parties involved come to a disagreement over contract terms, and a judge must interpret a contract according to statutes and guidelines. Breach of contract lawsuits are common. So basically what this is breaking down is how construction goes. So it gives an example. An owner agrees to sell you his car for $2,000 and you take the deal. He delivers the car, but you thought it was another model. If you sue him for a contract breach, the court will adhere to certain guidelines or rules of construction to assess what was intended. So when we're talking about construction, basically they can take a law, if you will, and this one is using contract law because I feel that it's something that is more digestible than trying to break down stuff from a constitutional perspective. I'm going to play some things and we're going to get into that element of it. And I'm going to also read from the book Justice and Jurisprudence that was published in 1889 by a group of freedmen out of Baltimore. And they're going to get into some of that as well. So it says court interpretation. When courts intervene and interpret agreements, the judge will adhere to the rules of construction. The courts will assess the contract, including wording and terminology. In the case of the car, the court will assess the contract. The goal was to unload the car and make some money from the sale. Your primary aim was to get stable transportation for a good price. The court will assess the contract to see if such goals were met. If not, the court will determine what needs to be done so that all parties can reach their goals. Rules of construction interprets legal instruments. See, that is the key. Rules of construction interprets legal instruments, especially statutes and contracts. In our case, we're going to be dealing with statutes. Really, we're going to be dealing with constitutional amendments. Statutory construction is a process in determining what a certain statute means so the courts may apply it appropriately. So understand, statutory construction is a process in determining what a certain statute means so that the courts may apply it appropriately. I want you all to stick a pin in that because that is going to be vital as we move forward in the conversation. Peace, Jamil T. What's going on? The Freedmen family is in the building. Shout out to the Freedmen. Those, when I say Freedmen, I mean all of our people nationwide. But I distinguish those that are Freedmen conscious by those that understand that this is the name, the status that we fought for after slavery, and what we're pushing to be identified as with the Office of Management and Budget at the federal level. So when I say to my Freedmen conscious family, that's what I mean. Those that know, or as we would say back in the days, the 5%, right? Those that know the truth and know what is going on. So let me see. Where am I going to go with this? I'm going to go to Harvey Johnson's The Nations from a Point of View. This was published in 1903, if my memory serves me correctly. So I'm going to be doing some reading, and I'm going to be playing some audio again from Audible, the books, The Second Founding by Eric Foner and Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow. So let's read what Harvey Johnson had to say in the early 1900s, family. He says, I quote from Article 4th of the Constitution, Section 2nd, and the first clause, quote, the citizens of each state shall be entitled to all the privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states, end quote. The fourth clause gives us equal interstate privileges and immunities with all other citizens because we are citizens. And we are citizens because the 14th article of the Constitution says so, and that we were born here. Now, that is not 100% true. And we know that this is not true because we have shown right here on this platform that the two dissenters in the Scott v. Sanford case that we know of as the Dred Scott decision, the two dissenters highlighted that we had always been citizens of this country. And they give proof that in at least 5 northern states, we had the right of suffrage and that we exercised the right to elect officials who represented them in the signing of the Articles of Confederation, which then becomes the Constitution for these United States of America. Okay, so I wanted to kind of add that correction in there. But the rest of what Harvey Johnson is saying is on point. Quote, he's reading from the 14th Amendment or quoting the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, end quote. Privileges and immunities. Me and Brother Ali was having a discussion earlier. Man, we was on the phone for like 5 hours. We're putting some things together. One of the things that we're putting together is a presentation for this word Negro. And when we get finished with this, it's largely going to be Ali, but I'm gonna jump in and out and share some stuff. We don't want to hear about it anymore. Don't talk to me about Obama and Mace. What's that name? Mace Green, whatever the Chinese chick from New York. They got rid of the word Negro, and that did something. That did absolutely nothing. It's BS. It's a bogus talking point. And when we get finished, we're going to show and prove it. Y'all know how we do over here. So when I say it's coming, look for it because it's coming. It will be here soon. We will be live streaming that on this platform. So he continues. Oh, no, excuse me. We were talking about privileges and immunities. And one of the things that Foner notes in his book, The Second Founding, and it is also highlighted in the book, The Original Meaning of the 14th Amendment. The two authors' names I never remember, but that's the name of the book, The Original Meaning of the 14th Amendment. They speak about privileges and immunities. And I was speaking about that earlier, and Ali asked me, well, what are the privileges and immunities, being that Congress never defined them? And my response to that was, well, you could look to the 1866 Civil Rights Act to gain an understanding of what those privileges and immunities are. And it lists them. And then it says at the end of listing those privileges and immunities as enjoyed by white men. Now, I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but it's basically the same exact privileges and immunities that quote unquote white men receive in this country was supposed to be granted toward our people. And we've not been able to live that full American life in that sense. Okay, Corey Lorenz, what's going on? BTP Corey is on deck. All right, all right. The BTP Mars is in the building. What's going on, D? I see you. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Make sure y'all share the video out. This is an important discussion because everything that we do here at Be the Power is leading to something greater. We are in no way trying to mislead anybody. I know we don't have to say that because our reputation speaks for itself, but I want to stress that to all of the new listeners because there are people that are in this space that are trying to mislead people and take them in another direction. The path that we are going has already been blazed for us. That's why I'm reading from The Nations from a Point of View by Harvey Johnson, published in 1903, I believe is the publishing date, 1903 or 1905. I'm going to be reading from a book that was published in 1889 from some freedmen who understood the laws of this country. Okay, so let's continue with what Harvey Johnson says. He says, and I wish to also say that we, as a race, hold the national government equally responsible with the state's governments for our citizen rights and privileges. Yes, and more so for the Constitution, as just quoted, grants us equal protection of the laws in that it says, no state shall deny any citizen within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That is so important as we move forward. I forgot to share the link up. I was to share it to one space on my Twitter inbox. I got to make sure certain individuals is listening to these conversations. All right, done. Okay, so he stresses this point. He stresses this point that no state shall deny any citizen within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. And the whole world knows that the southern states do not grant us, quote unquote, equal protection. Now, we know that it was no states, right? No, not in the North or in the South, particularly at the end of Reconstruction. Now, then, Harvey Johnson's time, excuse me, there may have been more leniency in certain states in the North, but we know that it wasn't the case in places like New York City, where we had to deal with the immigrant class who was equally or more brutal than the Anglo-Saxon white supremacists who sought our utter destruction. So it wasn't always the case. And as the 20s and 30s roll in with racist housing covenants, et cetera, also we can find this highlighted in the book, The Devil You Know. I might read from that later, where Charles Blow, the author, speaks about how the northern cities over the past several decades have been extremely harmful to our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, meaning the freedmen's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, so he says, and the whole world knows that the southern states do not grant us, quote unquote, equal protection. So we hold the nation's government responsible because we and all other persons who are citizens of the United States are so in a preeminent sense, in that they become citizens of the United States before they do or can of any state. This brother is spitting in the early 1900s, family. Those of us that come out of the movements that we've come out of, and I can say it, the Moorish movement, we've known about this stuff. Brother Grimm been trying to get me to read this book for years, and I never read it, but he's read excerpts from it over our time and showing and proving certain things. But now all of this information is coming back full circle, and we get to make it available to the family, because those of you who are watching this or will come across this video, it is more than likely it will be we who pick up that fumbled football and run it back for a touchdown. And it's just as simple as that. But we have to do our job. So let's read that part again. He says, because we and all other persons who are citizens of the United States are so in a preeminent sense, in that they become citizens of the United States before they do or can of any state. For no one can become a citizen of a state until he has first become a citizen of the United States. And again, persons become citizens of the United States by a different process than that of the state. The first is by birth or naturalization, and the other is simply by taking up residence within the bounds of any state. But citizenship does not follow the taking up of such a residence until he has first become a citizen of the United States. So the states are dependent on the United States for their citizens. This is so important. I'll give a breakdown in a few. But by becoming a citizen of a state, one does not lose his United States citizenship. And hence, he holds a twofold citizenship, that of state and United States. And both are bound by constitutional enactment to afford him protection to, quote, life, limb, and property. See, that's that 1866 civil rights language and sentiment right there. And we know that we get this idea of big government from the racist white supremacists at the time, who did not want the government to impede with their money flow. And their money flow consisted of owning our ancestors as property, as chattel, as one would own a cow or a horse or a hog. We are neither of those things. So we'll get deeper into that in a few. It says, but if the state does not protect her citizens, then the United States must do so, or violate its own constitution. For in the 14th article, it says, quote, no state shall make or enforce any law that will abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. Now, this article of the Constitution gives the United States supervising power over the several states as to what laws they make for the government of citizens of the United States. See, we have to be careful when we're talking about government, because this same government set the restrictions on the states. And what the states did in turn was violate those restrictions. Those restrictions. And the reason why they were able to violate those restrictions was due to another element of government that we don't always view as government, which is the Supreme Court. And I'm going to get to that in a few. He says, it says more than that, for it says that the state shall not make any unjust laws. And if they do, it says they shall not enforce them. And all this is said for the simple reason that all persons who are citizens of the several states were citizens of the United States first, and that they do not lose their United States citizenship by becoming citizens of the several states, and that the United States does not relinquish its right to look after and protect its citizens simply because they happen to become citizens of some state. Brother Harvey Johnson was spitting, family. Brother Harvey Johnson was spitting. And the fact that many of us are just now realizing this level of education that this man had in 1903, 1905 shows that the educational system not only failed us, but that this was a concerted effort by those in government to keep us deaf, dumb, and blind to these facts that this man is laying out in 1905. It says, but the United States, he says, but the United States says that the states shall in no wise oppress her citizens. And yet, how shamefully the general government stood by and allowed the states to make unjust laws and enforce them. And more than that, the general government has stood still, yes, stock still, and seen the meanest kind of customs grow into practice and take the place of the properly enacted laws, regardless of the fact that the Constitution says no one shall be denied equal protection of the laws on the flimsy pretext that the United States allows the states to exercise their own police regulations. And it is absolutely true that the general government does that effectually, but only where its colored citizens are concerned. And I could keep reading because he gets deep on this, but I'm going to stop sharing right there because I want to drive home the point. Oh, we got Josh on the stream. Hold on. I want to drive home the point that what Harvey Johnson is saying here is absolutely powerful. What's going on, Josh? Can you hear me? Yo. All right, I'm not sure if Josh can hear me, but as long as the audience can hear me, I'm
Yeah,
good.
I can hear you, bro. Can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah. I'm on, but then I got my hands tied up, so I'm just gonna listen on. I'm gonna shoot you a message as soon as I get
Okay,
a
I
little
got
free.
you. I
Yeah.
got you.
But it's spitting that fire right now. I was
Man,
listening in.
man.
I'll just say real quick, and then I gotta take a little break. But the we can't. I think a lot of times we see today, and then we think, oh well, man, we got it going on. We got all this information because we have another 100 and some years of records to look through and people that have already done it. Yeah, but we don't want to discount like the stuff that people were on back in those days. Like we really need to respect how those people were in tune with the law and in tune with the spirit of the supreme law of the land and even the other and how government works, right? Because it really affected them. It wasn't like, oh, it's something that we would like for things to change, or we this some type of ideological thing. No, this is stuff that like really affected people's lives. If we're talking about whether they could eat, whether they could really it'd be life or death.
That's right.
And although maybe it's not as visceral and easy for us to be able to see today, because as that one report that came out that said, well, you can't say nigger like that no more. You can't just come out and say, you have to. So a lot of the stuff is shrouded, but because it's not so overt, a lot of times feel like people lose sight of the true intent of how these laws are. But when you really start to dig in, you see all they did was just change the form, they changed the presentation, they
That's
changed
right.
the language, but they're getting the same results. So I'm gonna throw it back to you, brother Naheem.
Definitely. And I'm trying to see where I want to go with this next. I think I'm all right. So what I'm going to do right now is I want to play from Eric Foner's the second founding. I want you all like remember what we do here on BTP is educational. What we do here is educational. We are trying to get us to a point where when it's time to battle in the courts, that's why we use specific language. Even when we're conversing among ourselves, we strive to use language that does not or would not rather trigger what the courts call strict scrutiny. And it seemed like that understanding is lost on a lot of people that I thought that I thought got it, but obviously I was wrong. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to let this play a little bit because I want people to understand what we're dealing with and how the remedy is going to come. Number one is going to come by us doing what we do. Period. Those of us that's listening in, we will be leading this charge. Make no mistakes about it. Make no mistakes about it. And this is why I believe that some people I believe some people are being paid to try to discount and discredit a lot of what it is that we're doing. I can't prove it, but to go that hard against certain individuals in the way that I'm seeing, I believe that somebody has to be getting paid. You just can't be a hater just to be a hater like that. I'm sorry, but it is what it is because we still winning at the end of the day. So I'm gonna stop my camera for a moment and I'm gonna play this audio. So y'all, okay, oh yes, all right. So y'all check this out.
The court's members included Edward D. White, a former Confederate soldier with a deep abhorrence of Reconstruction, who, as a young man, had participated in efforts by a white paramilitary organization to overthrow Louisiana's biracial government. White would become Chief Justice in 1910. The anonymous author of Justice and Jurisprudence noted that judges, consciously or not, were likely to be swayed by the general current of the feelings and actions around them. And the Supreme Court was undoubtedly influenced by the breakdown of the Republican consensus in support of Reconstruction in the 1870s and the retreat that accelerated in the following decades. The justices shared the belief, articulated by Democrats and liberal Republicans, the latter the self-styled representatives of the best men, North and South, that the expansion of federal power had gone too far, and that blacks must learn to stand on their own 2 feet without national intervention on their behalf. These views inevitably affected interpretation of the Reconstruction amendments.
Let me pause it there. Whenever there was any provisions that were created for us by the federal government, the cry that, oh, the blacks got to learn how to stand on their own 2 feet always came about. You ever, for those, many of us have children. When you're a baby and you're learning to walk, you still need assistance from your parents, right? You hold the back of you walk in back of the child and you kind of hold their arms. Sometimes you'll hold them by both hands. Sometimes you'll kind of hold underneath their arms. And you're doing this because they are not able to fully walk on their own yet. And in many instances, those of our people who were in the South that were freed from this brutal institution of slavery were babes in this republic. I believe that's an apt analogy. And every time the federal government said that they were going to help us walk, if you will, there was somebody that said, no, don't do it. Don't help them walk, which also strips the confidence. Because when you're right, go ahead, Josh.
I will say, brother Naheem, you know I'm the king of
That's right.
the metaphors and analogies. I was gonna say, man, it's worse than that. It's like if the parent decides, they say you got to stand up and you got to there's a cry for let the baby walk on their own 2 feet, right? But then that same person that's making the cry, they tell the parent to look the other way while they keep cutting the baby's feet, chopping and kicking the kneecap and all this kind of stuff.
That's
And
right.
you still crying that you need to let them walk. Okay, well let them walk then. Let them walk. Stop trying to sabotage and injure them. Every time when they trying to stand up, you're knocking them down, you're pushing them down, you stepping on the toes and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Like just, and that's what we're trying to say. There wouldn't be a racial wealth gap, but I take that back. It probably would be a racial wealth gap if we just had impartiality, but it
That's
will
right.
probably be the other way.
It'll be in the
It would be the
opposite.
other way. That's right.
A fact. That's a fact. Because we've already read from the bloody shirt that showed that our people in the South after slavery was working. And the reporters said they seen scores of white men who were lounging around lazy and not working. They didn't know what to do. They wasn't used to planting their own crops and picking their own cotton and tobacco, et cetera, right? So let me play some more of this.
As time went by, outlaws became more and more prevalent in national culture and increasingly evident in Supreme Court decisions. The judgments of the court, the New York Tribune remarked in 1880, fix unmistakably the national doctrine and policy. Yet the Reconstruction amendments, as Senator John Sherman declared, were the pride and boast of the Republican Party, and many decisions evoked sharp disagreements, not only from black spokesmen, but also from Republican leaders and newspapers. As early as 1875, Oliver P. Morton charged in the Senate that the amendments were being destroyed by construction. 13 years later, in his memoir, 20 Years of Congress, James G. Blaine, the party's 1884 presidential candidate, complained that thanks to Supreme Court decisions, the federal government had been deprived of the power to protect Southern blacks against outrages committed by individuals and mobs. Those who
I want to just pause right there. The Supreme Court allowed, due to their construction, due to their construction of the Reconstruction Amendments. Because of their construction of the Reconstruction Amendments, domestic terrorism took off. It was the Supreme Court caused that. It wasn't the president and it wasn't the legislative body. It was the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has been, out of all branches of government, our number one enemy, family. Number one.
To approve the 14th Amendment, Blaine insisted, had sincerely believed that it gave Congress a far greater scope of action than judicial inquiry and decision have left to it. The court's narrow reading of the constitutional amendments was a choice, not something predetermined by public opinion or historical context. The justices did not simply reflect popular sentiment. They helped to create it. And most of them deliberated with little or no reflection on the actual consequences of their rulings for Black Americans. Overall, the late 19th century decisions constitute a sad chapter in the history of race, citizenship, and democracy in the United States. In the early 1870s, even as Congress pressed forward with Reconstruction legislation, cases involving the second founding began to appear on the docket of the Supreme Court. The first involved the scope of federal authority under the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Bill U v. United States, decided in 1872, arose from the gruesome axe murder of 4 members of a black family in Kentucky by 2 white men. Benjamin H. Bristow, the United States attorney in the state, removed the case from state to federal court because Kentucky still did not allow blacks to testify in cases involving whites. The murderers were convicted and sentenced to be executed. By a 6-2 vote, with Chief Justice Chase not participating, the Supreme Court overturned the convictions.
So did y'all hear that? And I have that, and I'm going to pull that up. Let's pull that up. I have that case. Hold on one second. Let's pull that case up because I want you all to have an understanding of what the Supreme Court did so that we can understand what we must do in today's days and time. So this is the family of Jack and Sally Foster, the Blew case. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he just said it on the book. And this is from Eric Foner's book, The Second Founding. So it says in Lewis County, Kentucky, during the summer of 1868, 5 members of the Foster family were attacked by John Blew and George Kennard, who used the carpenter's axe and some other bladed tool to hack at the bodies of the family members. Jack, his wife Sally, and his grandmother Lucy Armstrong, who was blind, were killed outright. Right? So there's a couple of the children died, and it gets into the story. And I may get into this a little bit. I may, but the point is that the state of Kentucky, which was racist at the time, which, according to Harvey Johnson's breakdown, which was a true breakdown, was in violation of not just the 14th Amendment, but also the 13th Amendment. But using the 14th Amendment, it was in violation of the Privileges and Immunities Clause because the state did not allow freedmen to testify in jury trials. Well, then that was a violation because you're not being judged by your peers equally. We have to put these things in context. But the crazy thing is We don't expect to hear that such a ruling would end in these men being found guilty for the murder and sentenced to hanging. As Foner notes, and as this paper note, and I'll put this link in the chat, matter of fact, so you all can read this. Y'all know how we do. We like to share this information out. The Supreme Court reversed this decision. It reversed it. So let's finish listening to this, and then Josh, if you want to jump in, let's get it.
The Bill U decision anticipated many others in which the court elevated a traditional view of federalism above protection of African Americans. The majority opinion, written by Justice William Strong, an expert on patent and business law appointed by President Grant in 1870, acknowledged that the Civil Rights Act had been intended to remedy gross inequalities between the races in the southern states.
So wait a minute, y'all notice that the guy that gave this opinion, he wasn't even qualified to give the opinion. These people was just doing anything to us. And that's why it's important that we give this education so we could help build this movement out so that we could start pushing our youth. And it doesn't necessarily even have to be our youth. Any of us could go back to law school and get degrees in law. And I'm going to pull up something, and y'all going to see exactly why it is important, because how that saying go, all skin folk ain't your kinfolk. And we already know that in this movement, but I'm going to give an example of that in a few.
It was clear that the two convicted men had committed a brutal murder motivated by racial animus. Yet Strong seemed most concerned with counteracting what he considered a dangerous expansion of federal power during Reconstruction.
See, he didn't care about this Freedman family that got hacked to death. He only cared about the long-term implications of the federal government's power over those slave states and having a say-so in what happens to a portion of the citizenry, namely the freedmen.
The Civil Rights Act allowed the removal to federal court of cases affecting persons denied equality in state courts. Strong declared that only parties to the case, the defendants and the government, were affected, not potential black witnesses and not the murder victims and their families.
So, Josh, are you listening to this, brother?
Yeah.
Yo, basically what this guy said, and a lot of this sentiment became how the Supreme Court, through construction, which I had explained earlier, Brother Ali is in the building. What this guy is basically saying that this only applied to the states and the courts, if you will, as the parties involved. It is not, or did not extend to the black citizenry of those states. And this was wrong. This was absolutely wrong. All right, Ali is saying that it sounds a little bit low in the volume. I'm hoping everybody could how it sound to you, Josh? Is it low?
Nah, straight on my end.
All right. Peace, Sister Antonia is in the building. Shout out to everybody that's just joining. I'm gonna finish this part and we're gonna break this down.
It will not be thought, Strong wrote, that Congress intended to give to the federal courts jurisdiction over all causes, both civil and criminal. Justice Joseph P. Bradley, a former railroad attorney and another of Grant's appointees, issued a stinging dissent, joined by Noah Swain, whom Lincoln had placed on the court. The majority, Bradley declared, had adopted a view of the law too narrow, too technical, and too forgetful of the liberal objects it had in view. All blacks were affected by the race's inability to testify, and therefore removal to federal court was entirely proper. The decision, he warned, gave unrestricted license and impunity to vindictive outlaws and felons to slay them at will. But the real
all right, so I'm going to stop it there because people are saying that it's too low. So basically what Foner is highlighting is that due to construction, and construction, as I explained earlier, and I pulled the link up, it simply means that judges through what's called dictum or dicta, right? Through their own judicial opinion, get to construe the meaning of a law or a statute, if you will. I guess statute is the same thing. But in this case, it was the Constitution. And what Eric Foner highlighted is that because we had this misconstruing, and he gets into the slaughterhouse cases. I wanted to get into some of that, but people are saying that the audio is low now. Ali is saying that it's good, but I'll get into some of that another time. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to close that out. And the purpose of us having this show, How America Allowed Freedmen to be Persecuted, was to focus our attention on the Supreme Court, because ultimately that is where this fight is going to be happening. When reparations get challenged at the federal level, it is going to be challenged in the Supreme Court. When what happens in California finally comes to fruition, it is going to be challenged in the Supreme Court. It's going to go through the federal court first. It's going to eventually find its way to the Supreme Court. Whether it wins or loses at the federal level, it will find its way in the Supreme Court. And due to the Supreme Court's doctrine of strict scrutiny and their construction of those amendments back in or during the times of Reconstruction, it is going to determine how these rulings on reparations will either be won or lost. And this is why we are so vehement in understanding the language, because that's what they did. Everything that they did, it was by implication. It wasn't directly by like naming us, right? So race is always implied. The 3/5 Compromise and the Fugitive Slave Acts, it doesn't say Negro or slave, but due to the racialized branding of our people under pseudonames such as Black, Negro, and Colored, it's a signal to the so-called dominant society that this is who it is meant for, since the majority of the people that will be affected by any of these social control mechanisms, which are called laws, are almost always intended to negatively affect and impact the people in this country labeled Negro, Black, and Colored historically. Josh, you have anything you want to add to that?
Go ahead, Ali.
Ali ain't on.
Okay. I think, again, because it used to be way more overt, it leaves today is covert, and it leaves room for plausible deniability. And I guess people got amnesia and they forgot. And they just thought that the Confederates and their children, they at some point thought they just stopped teaching the ancestral hate, and they stopped teaching, and the schools of thought just ceased to exist, and they didn't continue. They didn't figure out a way to survive in the new and thrive in the new, developing America. But no, it's not the case. And that's why, this stuff just takes a different form. So, for example, like we're talking about 1900s and 1800s, but really we're talking about the 2023. We're talking about 2023. Yeah. And the perfect example of that is if you just look and see how they use a lot of this stuff in how they strike out, how they gotta still to this day get around race, and have the discretion that they give to federal prosecutors in being able to, basically do whatever, bring whatever charges, do whatever kind of wild stuff they want to do, strike jurors. They're able to do all kind of stuff, and they're able to choose who they want to. You brought up the removal to federal court. or removal from federal court to state court. And studies have shown how they have the discretion to be able to remove and they disproportionately remove freedmen or brought disproportionately brought federal charges on freedmen and disproportionately removed white folks to state court where they're going to get a more leniency and they're not subject to mandatory minimums. So this type of thing is not something that's of the past. It's just in a different form today. And too many of us get sleepy. We didn't got sleepy and it got amnesia and are falling for the hype and falling for the misinformation that allows you to think that it's something else. It's always something else that's your fault. Oh, as to why you don't get the same type of upholding of your constitutional rights as other folks.
That's right. That's right. So I wanted to go into, let me see something. I wanted to go into the book. Because they break constitutional construction down in the Justice and Jurisprudence book. And I mean, it's a lot. And I kind of want to get into it, but it was something. Let me see. I don't know. I might come back to that because I kind of lost the exact place that I wanted. Let me see.
But yeah, I mean, another thing is we gotta look at again the form. Just because the form changed doesn't mean that the result changed. Because when the title of this thing says "How America Allowed Freedmen to Be Persecuted," it's a past tense term. But that really, I mean, 1 second ago when I just read the sentence is the past tense. So that still applies because it's still happening. It's happening. It's just in the form today's in a large portion of that's happening today. The overwhelming majority of it is through the system of mass incarceration. Over policing, hyper criminalization, putting crazy charges on you, throwing you and locking you away. That's a newer form of it, and it's because of.
Hold on, Josh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right. I think it was for whatever reason, and I'm glad Ali just hit me in the back channel. My audio switched to the camera's microphone, so it does that at times. So that's probably why the audio went low.
It definitely sounds more crisp.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Josh. My bad.
No, you're good. I was just going to say that the form in which the persecution is switched, and we see the form So, and a lot of times when we say mass incarceration, the first thing we think about is criminalization. Is like, well, why are these Negroes? Why y'all freedmen got to be breaking the law all the time? But then, again, you just switch the form of the oppression. Instead of like, okay, come work for me and being sharecroppers and then it's like, okay, well, come work for me and be poor in the hood, and we're going to put a ceiling. You're not going to be allowed to get certain positions. Now it's like, okay, we'll let a few of y'all, have access to go to colleges and all that. But now you got to compete. We're going to replace you with a whole lot of other people that we're important. We're going to de-industrialize. We're going to put crack. We're going to let your communities decay. We're going to do malinvestment. We're going to underfund your schools, even underfunding your HBCUs. They're supposed to be getting federal and state monies. We're gonna do all that, and then when your community decay and there's no programs, no services, nothing, and we over police you, and then you're like, well, why y'all getting arrested so much? Why y'all doing so much crime? Okay, well, wait a minute. We don't have the majority of the drug use, you know. So why are we getting the majority of the police? I mean, the arrests. So so you switch the form, and then you try to flip back on us like, well, it's our. I mean, we were watching this one this one thing earlier. I'm not going to spill it, but it was a video that was back during like the 1950s and 60s, and it was Mississippi. And basically, you know, you see like those people during the white folks during those times, the racist WIGHTS were uh, were blaming us for why we were in this squalor and why we were in the position we are in at that time. And it's like, come on, man. Then you will probably have some of our people who will say the same thing, and it's the same way we have some of our people today that are blaming us for why we are have high crime rates and high poverty rates as because we're not getting up and go working. We're not getting up and doing business. We're not, you know, we need to pull ourselves by our own bootstraps. Like you just don't understand how this thing has been crafted and how the form has switched throughout the years, but only to survive and maintain the same results. But back to you, bro.
Right. That's right. That's right. So I want to, before I move, I want to play something from Michelle Alexander, but I gotta pull up Justice and Jurisprudence. I gotta pull this up because, again, family, what we are doing here is we are trying to set the stage for a battle that's coming, and we intend on winning. I cannot speak for everybody else in this movement. I don't care if you have reverence for certain individuals, me personally, the team as well. I can speak for the team on this. You know, we're looking at certain individuals and we're saying, and we're asking the question among ourselves, are we trying to win? So now we have to separate ourselves when we start to see and hear certain things and say, well, are they trying to win? Because I know that our plan is to win. And like I said before, we've spoke to constitutionalists who, and Josh can tell you, who said y'all are ahead, way ahead of me on this thing. We have attorneys that we kick it with that are looking into this Freedmen thing, and they see it for what it is. I heard one of them speak at the rally that we did in October at Washington, D.C., and they see it for what it is. They understand that this Freedmen thing is where our remedy is. Point blank, period. Everything else just sounds good. It's a good dressing. It's a good facade. But it's some veneers, but it's not going to get us to the finish line. It is just going to get us on the battlefield where we are going to get slaughtered if we're not doing this correctly. So parting our backs, that's a term we used to use in the hood, if you ain't on what we on. Because if you ain't on what we're on, parting our backs, because we're on winning. So let me share this real quick, and then I'm going to get into Michelle Alexander and touch on some of what Josh just said about other people who may look like us, right? And what they're trying to do in this whole process. So this is from the book Justice and Jurisprudence, an inquiry concerning the constitutional. I would have to click on it to look at the whole title. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to lose my page. So this is a book that was published by some freedmen in 1889. It's out of Baltimore. It is true, he continued, the general press follow in the broad, deep channels, as did our forefathers, who sounded all the depths and shoals mapped out in the Constitution for the preservation of our American civil rights. But I also think with you that the courts, which ought to be calm and collected and in command when we are at sea, should not, in the face of such a multitudinous array of formidable public enemies of high and low degree as is daily gathering, be unguarded or give any loose or equivocal construction to these amendments, which constructions in the end may come back to plague the investors. The descendants of the freedmen, whose birthrights as citizens you charge today are openly sold for a mess of pottage, may yet be called upon, as were their forefathers in the days just gone by, to stand between the Constitution and its ruthless invaders, to shield it and save it or perish there too. Like, this quote is powerful. This quote is powerful. I want to read that last sentence. The descendants of the freedmen, whose birthrights as citizens you charge today are openly sold for a mess of pottage, may yet be called upon, as were their forefathers in the days just gone by. Remember, this is 1889. To stand between the Constitution and its ruthless invaders. Those ruthless invaders are robed still on the Supreme Court today. They are the governors of what are called red states today. They are House reps out of what are known as red districts today. And in many instances, they are also coming out of blue states. And the form that they take, using the analogy of Malcolm X, is when he called the conservatives wolves and the liberals foxes. Well, those House reps and governors, etc., that are coming out of these blue states, they are like the foxes. And we know that they want to chew us. They want to chew us up just like the wolves do. And each has their own purpose. And each sees us as a meal in their own different way. I just got a question. Is Gavin Newsom objecting to cash payments? From my understanding, no. He didn't speak on any objections to cash payments. He just basically spoke in support of what's going on with the California Reparations Task Force. So, okay, now where was I? Oh, I want to get back to that real quick, because when he says that, like, basically what he's saying, or in this quote, is speaking about those that are being called to stand between the Constitution and its ruthless invaders, to shield it and save it or perish there too. That's us today, family. This is providence, as we see in the next line, and the mysterious workings of providence, to whose inscrutable ways the wisdom of man is foolishness, right? So this is providence that we're here and that we're reading this, and that we are those whom the authors, the Brotherhood of Liberty, that they are those who authored this book, these freedmen out of Baltimore, who are the ones that are standing in between the Constitution and its ruthless invaders. And I'm about to show you another of those ruthless invaders. So let me put a link to this in the chat. Josh, I don't know if did you want to speak to any of that? Because I'm going to go on to the Michelle Alexander New Jim Crow.
Nah, you go ahead right into it.
Oh, my bad. I just said that wasn't a question for the air. My bad. All right, so let's get into Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow.
Of the drug war effectively guarantees that those who were swept into the nation's new undercast are largely black and brown. This sort of claim invites skepticism.
Josh, I think we can hear it good, but y'all let me know how y'all hear it out there if it's too low.
Non-racial explanations and excuses for the systematic mass incarceration of people of color are plentiful. It is the genius of this new system of control that it can always be defended on non-racial grounds. Given the rarity of a noose or a racial slur in connection with any particular criminal case. Moreover, because blacks and whites are almost never similarly situated, given extreme racial segregation in housing and disparate life experiences, trying to control for race in an effort to evaluate whether the mass incarceration of people of color is really about race or something else, anything else, is difficult, but it is not impossible. A bit of common sense is overdue in public discussions about racial bias in the criminal justice system. The great debate over whether Black men have been targeted by the criminal justice system or unfairly treated in the war on drugs often overlooks the obvious. What is painfully obvious when one steps back from individual cases and specific policies is that the system of mass incarceration operates with stunning efficiency to sweep people of color off the streets, lock them in cages, and then release them into an inferior second-class status. Nowhere is this more true than in the war on drugs. The central question, then, is how exactly does a formerly colorblind criminal justice system achieve such racially discriminatory results? Rather easily, it turns out. The process occurs in 2 stages. The first step is to grant law enforcement officials extraordinary discretion regarding whom to stop, search, arrest, and charge for drug offenses, thus ensuring that conscious and unconscious racial beliefs and stereotypes will be given free rein. Unbridled discretion inevitably creates huge racial disparities. Then, the damning step. Close the courthouse doors to all claims by defendants and private litigants that the criminal justice system operates in racially discriminatory fashion. Demand that anyone who wants to challenge racial bias in the system offer, in advance, clear proof that the racial disparities are the product of intentional racial discrimination, i.e., the work of a bigot. This evidence will almost never be available in the era of color blindness because everyone knows but does not say that the enemy in the war on drugs can be identified by race. This simple design has helped to produce one of the most extraordinary systems of racialized social control the world has ever seen.
We're going to stop it right there. Ah, man, brother Josh. Michelle Alexander in that book, The New Jim Crow, especially that chapter. What chapter is that again? Always get confused. That's chapter 3, The Color of Justice. That's my favorite chapter in that book because when you're viewing even a book like that through the Freedmen lenses, right? There are certain things that elucidate themselves. And as she did in drawing a line from Reconstruction up into modern day with the war on crime and the war on drugs, et cetera, et cetera. Her understanding based on her research, I don't even want to call it her understanding, the proofs that she presents, let me say, I shouldn't have said that. The proofs that she presented showed that due to construction, right? That's why I wanted to play Foner and I wanted to play Michelle Alexander. I wanted to play Foner specifically speaking about construction of the Reconstruction Amendments and how, due to the fact that the racist justices on the Supreme Court stripped the efficacy of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, so much so that it emboldened the white private citizen in this country to commit all sorts of barbarity and atrocities against the freedmen after the period of slavery, all the way up to the fact that these people dumped drugs in our neighborhood. This is genocide, right? This is a judicial genocide on the one hand, and a chemical war on the other hand, we didn't own any boats. We didn't own any Cessnas. How was the drugs getting into these poor neighborhoods? We didn't own any of this stuff. You start looking into the Iran-Contra scandal. You start looking into the situation with Freeway Ricky Ross out of Los Angeles. And these things, again, they start to elucidate themselves. The pieces to the proverbial puzzle start to come together. And these books help us connect the border of the pieces. The information within the books help us separate the blues with the blues, the red with the reds, the flowers with the flowers, the this with the this, the that with the that. And for us as freedmen who are looking at this thing through a lens that is not common in today's times, hence the reason why I read from Harvey Johnson's the Nations from a Point of View, and which was published in between 1903 and 1905, and the 1889 works of the Brotherhood of Liberty, a group of freedmen out of the city of Baltimore, Maryland. Then you gain an understanding of why our view and our outlook, our perspective is slightly unique when it comes to this information. And what Michelle Alexander does here is she breaks down the fact that, and she also speaks to Biden's speech on the House floor. That it may be in that chapter. It brings you to that speech where there's this implication that he's talking about Black people, right? We know that there's no other people that he's speaking about other than Black people. And when they draft these crime bills, when they're pushing tough on crime, what is it? Law? What is the term that they use? Anyway, tough on crime, tough on war on drug type of rhetoric. They are targeting Black people. Black people, right? Otis gave an excellent shout out to the OG Otis. He gave an excellent comment. He said, proof of what you're saying is the fact that the 13th Amendment has an exception clause. The construction of that exception was not to enslave white men. And that is a fact. And it speaks to exactly what I'm speaking about right now. They're merely implying that this is for Black people. So when she says, after you get thrown onto the streets for being racially targeted, those same courtroom doors are then closed to you when you try to bring your case, saying that I am a target and a victim of racial discrimination. And I know so because everybody that was in the cell looked like me and they were all brought up on the same charges. I don't know how these drugs got in these neighborhoods. I just know that the government never held up its end of the bargain and gave us crumbs off of a cake that is the welfare system that built up a white middle class. And now I can't go in the courtroom and even sue and say I was racially discriminated against because I have no proof, because it is only implied that the law was for Black people. Let's not forget the fact that the media will plaster the faces of Black people all over the news. They did that in Bush's campaign. I believe it was Bush's campaign where this guy got caught selling crack, right? He was hustling right near the White House. The White House was in the backdrop. They used that to make it appear as if Black people are the face of drugs. One of the things that Michelle Alexander absolutely debunks is this idea that Black people are the biggest drug users in the United States of America, or that we even constitute the majority of the drug arrests in the United States of America. Y'all make sure y'all get that book, The New Jim Crow. We might, matter of fact, we are going to make that a book club book 1 month. Yeah, go ahead.
You gotta go over that one. You know, the crazy part was about that when that whole thing when they supposedly caught the dude selling crack. They set him up to do a photo op of a crack deal in front of the White House, basically.
Yeah.
Like they set him up to it was a whole political stunt behind it. They want to, oh, we got crack selling crack right outside the White House. No, that was facilitated and set up to do that. Like the way the dude broke. If you ever watched that Netflix documentary, they show it on there.
Oh
But
yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, but what we're saying is, and I guess people got to try to figure. It's not just about the point we're making. We're in terms of, yeah, we know we've always been persecuted, but the large point that we want everybody to understand is it's been the Supreme Court that has been arguably the worst damaging, branch of government against us, because like even when Congress can pass certain legislation, Supreme Court can just pretty much and we didn't vote Supreme Court justices in, and they can just come in and put their racist ideas and make some BS justification and strike down that legislation that we voted the people in, and we did the political work to get them to move to take the action, and then they take the action by writing the legislation and implementing, passing it, getting it passed, and then here comes racist Supreme Court. They make up some BS, and then it's undone. So that's why when you see us on it, like we on it, to make sure that certain things are done with precision, it's not because we have some type of ideology. No, it's because we understand that the ultimate, even if we want reparations, Congress, you do this, they don't, okay, let's say you get Congress to do it. If it's done in a certain way, just like, California, if it's done in a certain way and it's not, you have to make it real hard. Don't make their job easy. I'm not trying to say, even if we do everything right, even if people listen to what we suggest and we get this thing, because we believe we got it right, but even if that's done,
We got
it's
it
still,
right. We got it right.
No, I'm not trying to toot our horn like that, but I
I don't
believe we
try to
got it
toot
right.
our horn. I don't toot our horns neither. But right now, I just gotta say we got it right. And I'm not gonna be afraid to admit that, because there are people that are relying on the fact that we say that, well, maybe y'all don't believe y'all got it right, because that's why we're going through all of these different sources, just to show and prove that we got it right and that we're very, very well studied on this subject.
Please, somebody show that you are taking the time. I mean, we've been doing this for several years, actually, even before Be the Power, but years and years of knowing this stuff, and then we're still adding on top of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I mean, I don't want to make it like a basketball example and make it like, oh, LeBron, Kobe were like, LeBron is at the top of the league as far as all time. You can argue he's right around the top of the league as far as all time players. But he's still, in this age and time, he's still adding dimensions to his game. Kobe Bryant did the same thing. All these great players add dimensions to their game. You don't just play, oh, I can average 30 and that's it. I don't need to switch. I don't need to improve. Like, we have a solid understanding of this thing and been talking about it for years, but we're constantly reading and digging and adding new layers and discovering new pieces and trying to make sure that this thing is super airtight. And I will say that, the more you learn and the more you grow, you add new ideas and possibilities open up. And I would say, I don't know who else is doing that type of refinement, constant refinement.
No, I don't see it, bro. I don't see it at all.
Not
But
any.
it is what it is. We're gonna keep doing what we do, and we're in hopes that we can inspire people so that they could pass this information along, and we can build like, you know, Ali always brings up that Martin Luther King TV sit down that they had. Peace, Vince Jefferson, just plugging in. And it speaks about the creative minority. And that's basically what's needed. What's needed is that creative minority that's going to take this thing to the next level. And that's what we're seeking to do here with Be the Power and the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen. So,
100. And I'm saying that I just wanted to get to the point of what you're breaking down is, you know, the Supreme Court, and we want to make sure that this thing is as tight as possible. So, when we are talking about certain things like certain language and presenting things from a certain perspective, like the Freedman perspective, where we don't backtrack, because what I'm seeing now is that people want to get a win, and they feel like they're close to getting something. So you concede on everything that you know is what you really need to get the big win, to go and settle for, you know, what you can get. I was watching another thing that was dealing with the civil rights movement era. This is that same video that I was talking about earlier, dealing with something in Natchez, Mississippi, in the mid '60s, and you know they were tired of getting, you know, basically treated in the most lowest, denigrated position that you can imagine. So they said, "Oh, you know, we're gonna get up and we're gonna make some demands, and we're gonna take it down to, you know, the people that's in the city, and we, you know, we're gonna tell them we want these things. And let's just strip it down. We know what we really need and what we deserve, what we want. But let's just strip it down to the easiest things they could possibly give us, so we can get wins." And they turned around and said, well, no, they rejected all of those. So the point is, just stand on your square, and we gotta like, when we know what we need to get to win, we gotta stay committed to that and not give in because we think we need to get something. No, that's not gonna win. That's not gonna help you win, and that's gonna help you get in the game and get crushed. That's
right.
what it's gonna help. Go ahead, bro.
That's right. That's right. All right. So let's get to this last portion of this presentation, and I'm gonna drop the link. OG Otis is gonna jump on real quick, but I wanna get to. Let me see. Let me make sure. Okay. See if y'all can see that. No, y'all can't see that. Hold on. Can you see that, Josh?
Yeah.
Where it says, okay,
New
office of. All right. So let me explain what's going on here. This is the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs. And this book, like, family, I want you to pay attention to this because this is important. And we're going to be doing something soon based on some information we just found out. It was either yesterday or the day before yesterday. And we had to search inside From Here to Equality. I was like, yo, hold up. Darity ain't even touch on this. Wait a minute. How you missed this? Right? Because it was so powerful. And when you look at the legislation, I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. And this stuff is still on the books. And we're going to get into that really, really soon. But we're going to like really break it down first, because we don't want to present anything in any half-ass way. And the only time we'll do that is if we're being intentional, because we're trying to see where the family goes with picking up on certain portions of the information so they could come back or say, look, you know, I found this, and be like, yes, exactly. So, you know, because sometimes we want to see who's listening, because like I said, either you want to win or you want to go join like some online school with some YouTuber and get, you know, some information about being indigenous and tracing yourself all the way back to some people that you can't trace back to in this country before it was called the United States.
We're gonna let them live, man.
Let them live. Y'all go do y'all over there with y'all useless information while we drop this useful information that is going to help us push this needle forward. So, New Jim Crow. This is the book. I just suggested. I was just reading, well, playing on Audible from, and this is important, right? It's just breaking down the book published in 2012. And it's the abstract. This book argues that the U.S. criminal system is being used as a contemporary system of racial control, even as it adheres to the principle of colorblindness. And we know that that's what's going on. It says the author states that despite the election of Barack Obama, the United States has not ended the use of racial caste. Instead, it has merely redesigned it by targeting black men through the war on drugs and the decimation of communities of color. Obama, which she is very critical of in this book as well. Matter of fact, I think something from this book is I pulled up on this platform before, and it was a case that Obama administration did dealing with disparate sentencing around crack cocaine. If I could remember, I'll pull it up in a few. But anyway, this book is good. This is a good book. It says she argues that mass imprisonment of the poor and minorities, they always on that black and brown thing, has exposed the racial and class bias by American politicians and black leaders, respectively. She notes that the basic structure of legalized discrimination in today's society hasn't changed, but instead the language used to justify it has. Construction, family. That is the word of the day. The word of the day is construction. That's how I opened the stream up, and it has been a consistent theme throughout this particular presentation today. So now it's like, okay, well, we see that this is the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs. Why is this book on this federal website under this federal office, this Office of Justice Program? So I was like, let's see what the Office of Justice Programs is when I just click on the link. So it says Office of Justice Programs, your partner for safer communities. So wait a minute, you had this book since 2012. Our communities never got safer. They never, ever got safer. They have a grants funding link for Congress, News Center, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I pulled it up because I wanted to see, and I didn't get deep into what the office is, and that's something that I'll look up along the way. It was getting close to the time to start, and I decided at the last moment to just do some background on the new Jim Crow, and I seen that link from this Office of Justice Programs, and it has as its subtitle, your partner for safer communities. Our communities haven't gotten any greater. Any safer, So what does that mean for us? Why is that book there? And it's only there because the issues of the freedmen, particularly when they're being brought by other freedmen, goes through this wash, rinse, and repeat cycle of what we know as benign neglect. That policy of benign neglect. This book's been here since it's been, well, I don't know if it's been on this site since 2012. I don't know that. But that book has been published since 2012, and it's on this website.
2010.
Okay.
2010, that book came out.
So, well, this one says date published 2012, unless that was the date that it was published on this website.
Well, that's the date of this particular article.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. Still, if it is, it's been up here since 2012, family. Why haven't they done anything to make our community safer? They've not invested. There has been disinvestment. They created opportunity zones, which have become slush funds for millionaires and billionaires. Those monies have never trickled into the neighborhood to create a better quality of life. It hasn't. So I want to bring you all to something that we did a live stream on before, and I didn't get deep that night. I was by myself, but I was compelled to put it on the record because I wanted to send a message to this person that we see you and you are not going to use our amendment for the purposes of murdering unborn children, terminating unborn children. You know, murdering might be a little too harsh for YouTube, but that's just the way I'll say it, because that's what it is to me. So this is an NBC article. The amendment ending slavery could be the key to securing abortion rights. I want you to think about construction. That is today's theme.
I remember we did a program on this.
That's right.
A long time ago.
That's right. It says denying the rights of reproductive health and choice, bodily integrity, and personal autonomy was essential to U.S. slavery. So she's taking this modern argument, and not only is she trying to construct the history, the law, she's trying to do construction with the history, right? She's trying to use this modern argument and conflate it with what happened with us during slavery and afterwards during Reconstruction. So, okay, let's get into this. So notice this woman's name, Lisa A. Crooms Robinson. We're gonna look her up in a few minutes. You know what? What I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna read through this whole thing. But
basically, what you need to know about it is we have been talking about the badges and incidents of slavery, you know, and the 13th Amendment, Section 2, and grants Congress the authority. And this is you know, coming off of the Supreme Court ruling of what was it, I think it was the civil rights cases of this was in the dissent of the civil rights, not the civil rights case, but the combined what they call them, the combined cases of the, I can't remember what the case is called, but I think it was like in the 1870s or 1883, something like that, 1880, whatever. But basically what it did was it defined, it interpreted the Section 2 of the 13th Amendment was giving Congress the power to eradicate all badges and incidents of slavery. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, Black women not having reproductive control of their reproductive rights is a relic of slavery. That's something that happened during slavery. And because they are also being affected, particularly by the the new Supreme Court decision and now laws that will subsequently be passed by the states, that is a violation of the 13th Amendment. So what they're saying is, let that be the foot in the door, basically, or the gateway to say, well, okay, this is violating the 13th Amendment. And then they say, well, hook on behind that, the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal rights. So Black women are getting this right that they don't, this is violating their, this is a badge of incident of slavery, so we need to get rid of it. And they get the right. Well, you're supposed to have equal protection to everybody. So then you can just invalidate, the specific freedmen protections essentially, and give it to everybody. So that's how you can defeat it. I'm like, wow, like you would really do that. You would really do all that. You take something that was meant for us and you bastardize it and prostitute it, and to get around, just to do that for the, that anti-abortion position. Wow. Why not? But you'll do that, but you don't have nothing to say. I don't even heard you use that 13th Amendment to say, well, that's why we need reparations. You don't really hear people talking about the badges and incidents of slavery and the wealth gap being the badge and incident of slavery. You don't hear them talking about any of this other stuff being a badge and incident of slavery. It's only when you can't do stuff that's attached to like all lives matter policies and whatever is on the liberal agenda policy. That's when you see how they want to misconstrue the 13th, the original intent. I don't want to say the original intent, but the true intent behind the 13th Amendment, to misuse it so somebody else can get the benefit, That's crazy.
But
They don't even say, they don't even, go ahead.
Let's read from the article, because she breaks down in this article a bunch of stuff that is wholly irrelevant and admits that this stuff is likely to get shot down. She says it, but let's read from here. It says, we need a new plan, and the 13th Amendment might be the answer to satisfy the most ardent originalists who demand some textual basis for both individual rights and congressional authority to legislate. This plan would have to put Black people at the center of their legislative efforts in ways that Roe's original privacy-based right did not. Again, we're watching this idea based on a pattern that we are going to take this liberal position where we trot out Black people to be the face of this thing. So then we can get it, and we can get some traction behind it. Let's throw in some slavery. Let's throw in a little bit of 13th Amendment. Add a little pinch of the slaughterhouse cases and how the 14th Amendment was so liberally construed. And boom, we got a recipe. Right? So let's continue. It says, since the court decided slaughterhouse cases in 1873, it has been accepted that the original intent of the framers of the 13th Amendment was to benefit those who were formerly enslaved. The 13th Amendment not only establishes declaratory freedom, but also grants Congress all the power it needs to enact legislation that undoes slavery, as well as its quote-unquote badges and incidents, as the court has put it. Although neither the court nor Congress has set forth an exhaustive list of those badges and incidents, in 1968, the court found Congress has the authority to enact legislation aimed at alleviating the institution's burdens and disabilities. Denying the rights of reproductive health and choice, bodily integrity, and personal autonomy was essential to U.S. slavery, which recognized enslavers' complete dominion over the people they enslaved. What does that have to do with? Anyway, U.S. slavery also forced enslaved women to reproduce, which fueled the domestic slave trade after the official prohibition of the importation of enslaved people into the U.S. in 1808. This absolutely has nothing to do with anything. But she says this, in conclusion, with the power of the 13th Amendment, Congress can enact reasonable laws that protect these rights today. Just as slavery branded all Blacks with slavery's badges and incidents, regardless of status, Blackness, rather than any other aspect of identity, would trigger rights protected by any law enacted by Congress using its enforcement power under the amendment today. So don't use the enforcement power to enforce the Civil Rights Acts of 1866 or to resurrect the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which should have never been shot down by the 1883 Supreme Court case. And we know that because the 1883 Supreme Court case was overturned by the Civil Rights
Jones
case
versus Mayer. Yeah, Jones
versus Mayer.
There was, the 1883. I forgot. I had to refresh. It was a consolidated civil rights cases,
That's
and then
right.
that was overturned by Jones versus Mayer in, I think it was 1968. Which like as soon as they got Thurgood Marshall in there, and then Dr. King died like a month before that, then they gave the final ruling on this case, and that overturned those. It overturned a whole bunch of that stuff. So
that's right.
Mhm.
So which proves it shouldn't have never been standing in the first place.
So, of
right?
course.
So let me read this, because this is this was interesting, and we kind of busted this chick out, and we tweeted at her, and I know I've not seen anything come out about using the 13th Amendment since. And this is what I'm saying. Yeah, our platform doesn't get the thousands and thousands of crazy views that we see with these other large platforms that ain't really saying nothing. But we that know better, we can do what we do in our capacity. And in our capacity, we are having a great impact. And this is something that the brothers had to make me realize. I'm like, yo, why these liars and these grifters and all of these people on these, how is it that they're winning? Right? Is with all of this nonsense that they're talking. They're not even really for reparations. And the bros is like, chill. What we're doing is having an impact. Think about the creative minority. That's all we got to focus on. And they had to beat that into my head, family. And now I have accepted it. And I see that in instances like this, that there's a possibility that just us doing that program halted the conversation about hijacking our amendment. This is the Freedmen's Amendment for their usage. So the article ends with this sentence. The 14th Amendment's equal protection guarantee, meanwhile, would allow non-Black people to assert their right to enjoy the same rights the 13th Amendment grants to Black people as a matter of racial equality. So what she's trying to do is, I mean, the article read like a bunch of mumbo jumbo. It was a bunch of mumbo jumbo that was, I'm guessing, designed to trigger a conversation in some legal way, possibly to attract some laymen to pick it up in mainstream media. And I didn't even hear it in the mainstream media, which means that mainstream media probably had to think, how will this go over, us covering this story and putting it on the national news with Black activists and Black groups? You know, even our puppets, you know, the Roland Martins of the world, they might even provide some pushback to this one. So let's not broadcast it. But NBC chose to put this on their website, right? So, and we called them out on it. So let's look at who Lisa Crooms Robinson is. And so we see her picture. Let's blow this up some. Lisa A. Crooms Robinson, 1991, University of Michigan, got her Juris Doctorate in 1991 from the University of Michigan, and her baccalaureates at 1984 at Howard University. Her biography. Professor Lisa A. Crooms Robinson teaches constitutional law, gender and the law, international human rights law, and Supreme Court jurisprudence, which means she should absolutely know better. But that gender and the law stuff over or superseded her historical knowledge of the 13th Amendment, the Reconstruction Amendments in general, which she admits in the article that stuff is going to get shut down, but she feels that they should try it anyway. It says Professor Crooms received her BA in economics from Howard University and her JD from the University of Michigan. Currently, Professor Crooms Robinson is a board member, and I don't know what's going on with these Howard, bro. There's something going on with Howard, man. With your Carnells, your Cars, your Crooms, your Darryl Scotts. What's going on with these Howard people, fam? Something ain't right with something is wrong with Howard. I think Freedmen have to, we have to take control of these universities again and and start setting some direction outside of what liberal white folks want coming out of these institutions. But anyway,
Gotta do better. I say, people really just, a lot of times our people don't really get challenged by other folks that are knowledgeable enough to challenge them on their ideas and their positions.
But wait, Josh, before you go in, I want you to go in. Because I want to just read this last part. I'm not going to read the rest of this. It says, she was a Fulbright scholar at the Norman Manley Law School, University of the West Indies, Mona campus in Jamaica, where she conducted research on the relationship between gender, violence, and law and the construction of Jamaican post-independence national identity. Lisa A. Crooms Robinson is a Jamaican, which means that she does not care about using something that was established for the freedmen for her own personal plight, which is gender and the law and some of this other stuff that she's a part of, like the Women's Right Division of the Human Rights Watch and the Women's Institute of Leadership Development of Human Rights. Well, and obviously she's for abortion, and she's also for construction. And remember, we had Sister Camilla on BTP, and shout out to our sister and all the work that she's doing out there in California. And she came on a couple months back, and we were talking about construction, and she brought up this term called interest convergence, right? And it's where these points converge. These, you know, like you may have some people on the right and you may have some people on the left, just to use as an example. And there's this point where the interests converge. We have the same thing in the judiciary. I mean, it's too much for me to get into right now. I had to get into it after she said it on the show because she went to school for all of that. But the point is, Brother Josh, is that this woman is a Jamaican and she doesn't care what happens to the freedmen laws and all of that stuff. She wants.
Thank you for saving me, because I was getting ready to try to come in and say, well, you know, maybe. No.
Let me put that link in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, bro. Go in.
And I know I talk about the circles, where circles intersect all the time in like a little Venn diagram. But, you know, hey, this is just another example how if you don't get up and start using your 13th Amendment Section 2 as like that is that's for you, freedmen. If you don't get up and start using that and standing on it and mastering that and putting that in the center of your call for justice and reparations, somebody else is going to get up and use it for their you know, agenda. That's if you don't use it, you know, that is like the most powerful tool we have. So the Constitution is supreme law of the land. That's what the Supreme Court is, you know, has conversations around in their deliberations. And all their rulings, it has to be centered on. It's about the constitutionality of laws. So if we're talking about reparations, the reparations is going to get challenged in the Constitution. And as far as being constitutional or not, it's essential that we center our claim in that Constitution, and that's that Section 2 of that 13th Amendment, empowering Congress to eradicate all bad incidents of slavery. It's important that we center our claim on that. And so, yeah, we gotta understand that, and we gotta make sure we protect against other people that try to delegitimize that. You know, because by them doing that, that kind of neutralizes us or hinders us from being able to use it.
That's right.
You know, because if nobody's going to respect something that people are prostituted out, and that's essentially what she's doing. And others are looking. She's back, and you look at there was a whole attempt at in about 10, 12, 15 years ago, where people were looking at trying to look at the 13th Amendment as a potential way to do like gay marriage and stuff like that. And that was the main reason why people wanted to revisit that, to see how can we use that to get the same remedy that she's trying to get here. But once that kind of was made a thing and it won in the Supreme Court, they just said, okay, we don't need that anymore. Until the Supreme Court ruled against Roe versus Wade. Then they said, okay, well, let's look at this again. So, but, you know, as much as we want to say, oh, we got allies, you know, people want to say, well, these people that, you know, they can be our allies. We need to ally with them. Well, how come they never brought up reparations when it came time to use that? Well, how come they never talked about our issues? They want to use the 13th Amendment for what they have going on. They only want to elevate us because it's a mechanism to get them access. Once that access, they don't need it anymore. They're not nowhere to be found. So, man, this is powerful right here. You know.
Oh yeah.
It's so many elements to this thing. It's so many points of attack. It's so many like pieces that we've identified and kind of brought forth. Man, I hope people are really keeping tabs on this, but
jump on, Otis.
that badges the incidence of slavery piece.
Mm-hmm.
Where Congress, you have to look at it like if Congress is not writing legislation to eradicate all the badges and incidents of slavery, we have many that we have identified. Then they're not doing their job. What are they doing? They're not doing their job. They're not doing what they're elected to do. And that's but who's going to hold them accountable in that? Who's going to hold them accountable? Well, it has to be us.
It has to be us. Like people, I don't think people understand that this, in many ways, is a last stand, brother. I don't think they understand that this hey Otis, jump on. The link is in the inbox. I definitely want to hear what you got to say on the subject because I've seen some of your comments in the chat. But yeah, man, after this, that's it. They're grooming our children in a way that they're either gonna be young liberals or young conservatives, right? And when it comes to Black people in America, we know that they're grooming them to be young liberals and to be accepting of things that really doesn't advance us as a people. They seek to abuse pathos and play on our emotions and plug on our heartstrings, and because we are a loving people, and they know this, and they utilize that to the fullest, right? They utilize that to the fullest, man, that we can use our media outlets. We can inundate the airwaves with commercials about certain things. And then the only thing we need to do is get Black people to take it up as a cause. Get Black people in front of it, like the Crooms person said. Like we gotta get Black people in front of it. We gotta get Black people in front of it. Freedmen, particularly, and then it's going to get the traction that they look, they're looking for.
I want to say one thing, bro. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother.
I just want to say, when you said something like we the last, but I mean, we got to really internalize that because, I have my mama on the line with these bros, and my mama is hey, what's up, bro?
I can't hear you.
1 2 1 2.
Check.
1 2 1 2. Otis, you can't hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. 1 2 1 2.
Okay, I can't hear you through my headphones, but I turn
you can hear me.
TV back on.
Okay, but you can't hear me?
Through the YouTube, probably can hear you.
Oh, so it's probably going to be delayed because he can't hear directly.
There's a slight delay, man. I should go out and come back in.
Yeah, try that, and maybe get off the YouTube too.
Well, he can't hear through the stream, y'all.
Oh, I see. Maybe okay. Maybe you need to adjust the settings on the sound or something.
Yeah, but go ahead and finish making your point, Josh. Until the OG get it figured out.
Yeah, I was just saying, I had my mama on the line with Brother Naheem and Brother Ali, and she was, I forgot why we brought her on because I wanted to ask her opinion about hey, do you want to be called a Negro again? Do you want people to refer to you as a Negro?
Yeah.
And she was like, what? My hand is broke, but I'm ready to think about it, ready to fight somebody calling me,
That's right.
Trying to put us back and call us Negroes again. I'm like, damn.
And the purpose, real quick, Josh, the purpose for that was to show or dispel this idea. Yeah, we hear you. We hear you, Otis. purpose
but
for
I
that
can't.
was to dispel this notion that people, older people accept this term Negro and that it's somehow stripped from them. But go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, and what happened was we about to I'm about to pass it right to you, Otis. But basically my mom was like, nah, are they crazy? And she was like, man, it's crazy what these white people are trying to do with calling us Negroes again. I was like, nah, mom, it's some our folks trying to call us a Negro. She was like, what? And anyways, relating this to the point you were making about us kind of being the last generation, I was like, the reason I brought my mama was because she started telling us some stories, and some of the stories that she was telling, I was like, man, I've never even heard you tell me the story. But somehow, when you get on with with
Uh-huh.
with these guys and we talking about subject matter, then you remembering some stuff that maybe it was too painful you didn't want to bring out, but and she was talking about, crosses burning, and it would be a regular thing to see. They knew where the Klan meetings were. We had to drive past it all the time and see the crosses burning down there in Southern Virginia. And then, all kind of stories about integration in the schools. And I'm like, like we're the last generation whose parents actually had to go through that, had to go and deal with that, whose grandparents had to deal with, all that and worse when segregation was like a norm, right? When it was legalized and solid for several decades, right? And their parents had a knowledge had grandparents who had been slaves. So I don't know what the future is going to hold for our next generation if we don't get this done now. I just think it'll just be completely abandoned.
That's right. That's right. That's right, Sister Antonia. We need all Freedmen hands on deck ASAP. But Sister Frida, shout out to our Sister Frida. She said exactly. That's a fighting word, and it's too close to calling us nigga, right? And we're gonna get into that, family. Oh, I can't wait till Ali finishes this presentation because this is going to be powerful. Like I said, shut down scholarship. That's all I've been known for. That's all my team have been known for. That's what we do. We do shut down scholarship. So, yo, Otis, I don't know if you could hear us.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So if you heard me right then and there, then you don't hear the delay then.
No, I think I'm all right.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
Hey, look, I've been really on pins and needles, man, because I'm gonna have to go back and try to find them. I think I told you I came into this movement as an abolitionist, and y'all have talked about Section 2. Man, I had a falling out with a New York lawyer that's supposed to be a public defender over that when I told her that Section 2 with enforcement powers is the only way to clean up what's going on with us. But I say that because you came into this conversation and I put that tweet up to tell you the exception clause is another staple on exactly what the 13th was meant for. As I said, I argue with people, I don't care how much education you have, common sense reasoning tells you if you are ending slavery and you put an exception clause and move it from private venue to purview of the state, the government now controls it, and you say except for when you're duly convicted. That is the very same people you just enslaved. So
That's
there's
right.
no question. But where the difference is, the lawyer tried to tell me that Section 2 only gave the Congress administrative powers when it came to enforcing slavery. And I said, that's a lie, but you just finished covering all of it tonight. So I'll have to go back and find some stuff from Black Talk Radio to let you see that. But I want to say something else too. We're losing out on this fight when I see people keep talking about Narcan and Cobra. I just want to throw this in as a side note.
Mm-hmm.
I've been pushing out that stuff talking about Liberation Ventures, but I've actually been tracking those people about 3 years. There's another large organization too. Let me say this to you.
You muted. Oh, unmute yourself.
Oh,
There you
okay.
go. There you go.
I'm sorry. I don't usually do public speaking, but once I saw what was going on with this Amherst thing, just like you're talking about this lady that's using gender stuff to encroach on this section too. They've done the very same thing with reparations. And I tell you, even with the people out in California, I understand that they think they're doing the right thing, but when it's all said and done, to even get it out of the California legislature is another 18 to 24 months. If I'm still above ground, I'm willing to bet you that once all of that falls apart, all of the disarray that's going on now, what's going to be important, just like you talking about how you research your particular area, some of these people that are bragging about making history are going to find out that they're not going to be able to do a victory march. And that's when the real work begins. Because what you're talking about is where we are, regardless of where we get to a finish line. I don't care if it's 5 years from now, 8 years from now. Whatever it is when it's finished is going to be the same thing that's going on with those black farmers. Why? Because that is America, regardless of what they tell you. I've heard, as a matter of fact, let me throw this in. Because of hanging around with you youngsters, I imposed some Twitter space stuff on myself for the last 4 months. And I'm telling you, it's toughened me up, man. It got me back in my fighting skills, because I don't have no trouble trying to monitor the opposition. It's distasteful. You got to put up with a lot of recurring bullshit. But I heard one of your black conservatives talk bad about progressives and claim how we're going to have to get away from race because white folks don't never do nothing. They ain't going to never do nothing as long as it's for us. Let me tell you this. White folks ain't have no problem with socialism. What the hell was the Homestead Act? What was the GI Bill? What was anything they got that they used? What? The construction of it to eliminate us. No different than when I tell people, you go through a narrative and they tell you they left out all the maids and the farm workers from what was the bill? I can't even remember.
The New Deal. No, yeah, the New Deal.
The New Deal. Left them all out. Well, hold on. They didn't leave them out. The Southern crackers literally told them, you don't have to call them by name. This is what all of them do this. Yeah, you might have 2% today that are not hourly workers and domestic workers, but we got to keep our Southern way of life here. So they didn't call us by name, but they knew how to make that very innocuous bill exclude us. So when my point is, all these conservatives keep talking about, oh, they leave us out. Yeah, they leave us out, but they don't do it by name, just like what you're talking about. They do it the same way the Lee Atwaters tell you. We don't have to rediscover this. That's the way it's been since the inception of this country. And the other thing is, I don't understand anybody doing reparations that believes that you have to explain to white people how it will be beneficial for them. There is no one who has been done harm in any case, civil or criminal, that has to explain to the onlookers why it should benefit them. I don't have none of your damn business how it would benefit you.
Facts.
It might just keep you from having to go through a second civil war. And in this second civil war, I'm telling you, if it goes to bloodshed in this country, I don't think I'll be around, but it's sure getting pretty close to the all-out warfare. So that's all I wanted to jump on and say, bro. We're going to have to start looking at some of this, because some of these people that have claimed to be longevity in here have been getting paid a whole lot longer than we thought they have. Liberation Ventures and several other things white folks have figured out. I said it in my presentation. And some of those people were actually from this organization, and I told them to their face. They figured out how to make their philanthropy and charity become beneficial for them, because every dollar that they spend with us, they get $1.25 to $1.50 back. Why? Because they're wealthy enough to invest in it. Then they told a lie and said that the primary focus where they were independent, the wealthy white people that wanted to help in the reparations fight. Then when you go deeper into their history, you find out they have 50 corporate sponsors and backers. See what I mean? Ain't nobody gonna tell the truth. But I'm also gonna put this on air. With all the stuff that goes on with people, I don't give a damn who you are. If I'm in a battle with you, and there's 5 or 6 sections of us across the country, if I run across a source of money, and you know this from some back channel stuff we had, ain't no way I'm gonna go to that source of money and don't tell the rest of my comrades, unless I know it was something junky about it. Now, you can have me on record with that. I don't care. And here's what I'm saying. Had you told everybody in the group about this source of money that had no strings attached, but then I got some petty in me too. And you know what really gets me? Is you take your ass down to the Mecca and have a vanity function in the backyard of the person who led you to reparations. See, a lot of people got some shit about them. I don't mind calling you out because I am who I am. I ain't expect to be here, but I'm joining the journey.
Hey,
I'm watching anything and everything and learning a lot.
I don't disagree with nothing you say. So
hey, look, if I'm wrong, I'm mad enough to come back on here and say, hey, I got it wrong.
You know?
But I call a spade a spade. And I tell many people, I'm fortunate enough to be close to 70 years old. And I say this not out of spite, but just after a black man has had to learn humility. I hope you just as goddamn arrogant and pig-headed when you got to correct this shit that you helped create. Because specificity of language and lineage base were the primary focus of everything that we've learned about reparations, which supposedly separated us from the Pan-Africanists. But what really got me is, I tell you, this movement is more than just personalities. It's also watching people. The whole time I was watching the Reparations Task Force meeting, I listened to people talk about personalities and the people that's coming up in the public performance and saying all kinds of stupid stuff. Look, you got to accept people where they are. When I laugh when y'all were talking about how crazy they are, like, look, everybody thinks the world spins around them. They don't understand that every ant in the goddamn colony understand that he ain't alone. And his strength lies with having some allies. So these fools, you got to let them go. But here's my point. All of those people that didn't understand that when Lisa Holder and Cheryl Grills stopped acting the fool and wringing their neck, they should have understood that they lost the battle on the verbiage and the specificity right from the start. That bill was knocking and cobra from the start. And when you got people like Amos Brown that wear 3, 4, 5 hats, he's the minister, the historian, the mentee of Dr. Martin Luther King. He got all the credentials. And he have, look, all these decades of experience he got, and he couldn't get no damn backbone until all of a sudden Irvin Blight is 2 blocks away from his church instead of 4 blocks up the street when he let him take that shit for years and years. I don't have no empathy for him, brother. But we got to be ready for this fight because white folks is turning this into a charity drive. I mean, and the interesting thing is several people that they have facing this are black people that are not us. And they literally have an introductory piece that they say this, and this blows my mind. Life is a trip. They literally use this term. We are a majority white organization that does black-facing leadership. I said, now how the hell white folks would turn around and took the word woke and screwed it up? Now they're going to turn blackface into something positive. But the irony is they're not lying because the people that they have doing it have pigmentation, but they're no different than the woman you just spoke about from Jamaica that don't mind cashing in on Section 2. I tell you, we got to come together with a whole lot of different analogy. And I laugh because I'm telling you, it's more than personality, man. There's a whole lot of people out here getting paid to do this stupid. Much power to y'all. I'm gonna mute myself, man. I might not go away Look,
Yeah,
I
stay
see you
on.
got
Look,
my main man coming on, so I might have to chip in because I see him go hard in the paint.
No, I was just jumping on to give you a word of caution, Otis. They say you got to be more diplomatic. They say you got to eat crow every now and then in the name of black elitism.
Oh,
The talented 10th is gonna get us past the finish line. Us humble
but look,
Negroes got to be quiet.
you know, it's interesting you say that, man, because when this conversation first started, I already told y'all I've been tracking it for about 3 years, but I kept asking the question and people acted like they didn't know what I was talking about. So I'm gonna be honest with you. When I asked the questions, I already knew the answer, but I'm gonna tell you something else that was interesting to me. Once I kept asking questions, I found out that the first hunk of money you got was actually pennies on a dollar. I'm gonna put it that way. And the reason I say that is because you also knew that the organization that you were diametrically opposed to had gotten money too. And I'm gonna say to you, they got 4 or 5 times more than what you got. But you telling me that the wealth fund is equitably distributing money because they want all voices heard. And I said, and when I came on with a simple tweet and said white supremacy on both sides of the thing, it turned into a personal assault. Somebody accused me of being all up in their DMs and all that. I can tell you right now, you know one of the things I do with my old black ass, I got enough terabytes here. I screenshot everything. The same person that accused me of being a dumbass and don't know nothing about nonprofits claimed that I've been all up in their DMs. I guarantee you I can pull it up right now. It's about 2 years difference between the first time that I ever got a message from them and the next time I communicated with them. But they tried to deflect from the claiming that they took care of all the financial responsibility. I said, oh, so you're the one I need to talk to. Can you show me any productivity on the money you spent that you got? Did you increase your community awareness? Oh, that wasn't under our contract. Oh, now you got technicalities. I know this. When I kept asking people how you could afford to be down in the Mecca in somebody else's backyard after you critiqued them for wasteful spending and being a grifter, you took money that dropped from nowhere that's supposed to advance your movement. And my old black ass, I ain't see you try to hire no young intern. I ain't see you get no new hardware. I ain't see you do none of that. But you went down there and handed out a whole bunch of plastic plaques and shit. See, I don't care if you don't like me. Facts is fact. And I tell you right
You
now,
got to take care of the inner circle first.
hey,
You got
I'm gonna tell you this. And look,
the inner circle.
in
and
the
I'm
inner
gonna tell you,
circle.
and I'm gonna tell you kind of Negro I am. My mama said I'm too hard. I said one thing I learned from all of y'all, God-fearing, God-loving, blessed, and highly favored people is y'all know God got a strong back because y'all ride him. You ride him like a damn government mule.
The first set of checks goes to insulate the inner circle.
Is that what it is?
That's the talented 10 strategy. You got to insulate the inner circle first, because you can't have the poor Negroes coming up and being amongst you. You know,
Wait a
you got to
minute,
insulate
hold
yourself
on.
from the poor Negroes you advocating for.
Look, I ain't trying to be disrespectful because of all this gray hair, but look, man, you misdirected me on some things because you keep saying a talented tent. What do they want to be talented tent?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
I've heard. Wait a minute,
know.
let me finish. Let me finish. I'm
Yeah,
gonna get the
yeah.
answer because I've heard the personal testimonies. We just regular people. We foot the bill on our own. Ain't nobody paying us. We ain't had no money. I heard all of that. So how is they the talented tent?
You know that old group that we was affiliated with once upon a time all aspired to be the talented 10th. They just didn't have the wealth.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. That's why I said wannabes. I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah. But now if you can get some type of slush fund that can get you in there, it can get you in the spaces you was once denied. You know, that was the whole see, we thought we was fighting for reparations. A lot of people was locked out of the spaces that they wanted to be in.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Let me look. I see you because I've heard you and Arthur Ward. I mean, like one black man to another, I respect y'all because y'all don't mind coming out here and expressing ideas and concepts. But let me ask you this. Somebody got mad at me because when I first heard it, I looked it up, and I've said this several times, but I'm going to be on the record because there'll be a few people out there mad. You know what really got me? Is when I started asking people to explain to me any legal precedent for the phrase with special consideration. Man, you'd have thought I got an AK-47 and mowed down some people at a damn soccer game or something. Because I just told them, look, I've been around for a long time, and I've been in and out of legal stuff with my business and everything else, you know. So what I'm saying is, I just never heard that phrase, the special consideration. Well, the bottom line is, when they doubled down on it and brought Shirley Weber back out in the public to ease the public mind when the pretenders had acted the fool, they said she came out and said that she was the one that got that clause put in there. Let me ask you again. Only time I ever saw that phrase used was something when I Googled it up, was somebody renaming a street in a small town. Like I said, that's the terminology you use for ceremonial shit, is basically what I'm saying. It's about as good as that policeman badge that Herschel Walker got. They sold that shit for 2 years. And it's obvious it had no meaning because of what Kamala Moore had to go through in that last public hearing. And those people knew that they had won when the verbiage wasn't taken care of 2 years ago. Again, some of the same people that want to be talented test that explain to a dumbass like me. I tell you, I'm country. I ain't got but 2 years of college and learn more shit in the street than I learned in college. But my point is, they didn't own up to it now, but you can't make that go away. That's on the historical record that you didn't get it right, and you got a universal program masquerading as reparations.
Be careful what you ask for. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine last night about, do we really want to get reparations, or do a lot of people want to be acknowledged for getting us past the finish line? And I was telling her like that, even if we got it in this generation or the next generation, this has been a fight that's been going on since Reconstruction. And some people believe they want their name, they want to be the Martin Luther King Jr. of reparations. When people speak of reparations, and I'm like, we just one spoke. We just one spoke out of millions and millions of spokes. We just moving this thing along. And if it comes to fruition,
as far as you can,
yeah, so I don't understand why everybody want to be recognized for the work that they put in. I'm like, recognition comes with the benefits, with the community uplift,
with success. Exactly.
I could care less if somebody knew my like. Matter of fact, I would rather you not know my name and get this thing cross the finish line than you know my name and we mess up somehow.
Because
it's not about the individual.
Thank you.
Let me throw this in here and tie it back because of what you're saying. I'm gonna tie it right back to exactly why I say with this thing about white folks turning this into philanthropy and charity. What they've done is found some really intelligent people that really think I can do this and my name will be in the record book. I call it boutique activism. I mean, literally, I ain't trying to brag on myself, but I'm going to tell you, as nicely as I could as a country bumpkin, for about 12 minutes, everybody that was on that screen that had given these 20-minute presentations about their whole family lineage and why they the hierarchy, and basically, my family, I should get this for nepotism because 4 generations back, my grandmama did it. Hold on. You're misunderstanding how this works. Each of us as individuals has a unique story, but this is a collective uplift. So you can't cash in and get a 1619 project and then holler about you advanced reparations. You ain't advanced shit until each one of those people. As a matter of fact, I ended by telling them, from where I am as a country bumpkin, one thing I've learned about strong communities everywhere I've gone in this world, it has strong individuals. That's everybody from the street sweeper to the man that wants to be the mayor. Everybody in that neighborhood should have lack of precarity for food, shelter, basic needs. Then you don't have to worry about what's going on, crime on the street, because people actually have time to work on interpersonal skills. So I don't play for that dysfunctional Negro shit. If you do something to correct us, because this one don't want to go to Harvard, don't mean he should have a good quality of life. What the hell wrong with you, nigga? I mean, I don't get that. And most of these people, even some of these preachers on here, I don't have nothing against religion, but I see preachers come on there. What we need is this and that. You back to that same old bullshit. I'm gonna finish with this and let y'all young people speak. I wish I could find it, and I got to try to get it. I used to draw a lot when I was a youngster. I got put out the 5th grade class because I heard that phrase about the pull yourself up by the bootstrap. And I'm gonna tell you the kind of nigger I am. I did a little drawing with a guy stepping on his shoelace and stumbling forward. You know, used to make them little fan books. So I do that one. Then I did one with the man pulling his bootstraps and he tumbled backwards. So that's what I'm talking. It's impossible. There is no such thing, but people tell you that's what you got to do. You're falling for a premise that has no basic logic in it. Anybody that anchor themselves to the back of their shoe, how are they going to advance anywhere? It makes no sense.
It's just this obsession for people that get involved in this community uplift.
I'm gonna finish it real quick.
You
go back to the power of the individual. Yeah, you have a lot of influence and control over your life. But matter of fact, I'll quote somebody I don't even like. One of the easiest people that said it is the Bumble Babbler. Antonio Moore said it. It don't matter how many goddamn plugs you got if ain't no outlets. Come on. Like I said, hey, even people I think have problems come up with some smart stuff. That's just the basics of it. And I'm telling you, some of these people that are cashing in got upset with me because I told them, you're doing boutique advocacy. And the truth is, if everything you were doing under the guise of civic empowerment, I'll be behind you on the ball, because that's all this is. What they're doing are equity initiatives. Reparations, basic definition is repair and restore. How the hell is you giving me rights due through my citizenship as a taxpayer in the now got to do with you repairing an ongoing harm? They're two separate things. As a matter of fact, the white folks keep on telling me we got to do with the Native Americans first. Hold on. I stand with the Native Americans, but they ain't send me a damn thing when they were sending out money to them damn casinos and whatever, and the money they were giving. They ain't asked me about nothing. They ain't give a damn whether I was cheering for them or not, and they ain't do nothing that I saw for black people that's getting shot, except to say they deserve it. So I'm gonna stop there, man. I just don't have no patience with some of these people.
Yeah. My whole thing is just this obsession to be recognized for the little bit of work that's being put in. I mean, even when you think about some of our contributions to this reparation space, a lot of the Freedmen language comes from Grimm. You don't see Grimm jumping around, hey, it's me, I'm the one who did it. I need to start my own page. I need to do this. I need to like because he knows that he's just one soldier in the army. Right. And we've been throwing people at this front line for generations. Right. And a lot of people just put their boots on, run out there and got shot down. But we've been able to move this thing further along. And I just don't want to see this thing turn into one person's vanity project. And it makes me wonder, like, do you want to get this thing past the goal line? Or do you have some type of asterisk on it? Do you only want to see, like, I've played on teams where if we was losing, if we was winning and I wasn't playing, I wanted the team to lose, right? Because at a young stage in my immaturity, that's where my head was at. Especially when I thought I was the best player on the team, right? If I'm not on the court, we deserve to lose, right? And I think a lot of people have that immature mentality right now.
It took a level of maturity for you to get beyond that.
Yeah.
Some people don't outgrow it. I agree with you 100%. Because, as a matter of fact, a lot of the work I do, I'm an old head, but a lot of work I've been doing with people, I'll say something to them, and, I'm gonna put your name in. Hold on, man. You know what I grew up with? Knowledge is something you share. I don't have no ownership of that. As a matter of fact, to be honest with you, I read it from somebody 6 months ago and I've just comprehended it enough to feel confident to pass it on. I don't have no ownership of this. I didn't generate this.
Somebody on another channel called it they intellectual property, but we won't get into that.
Oh, look. I tell you, well, you want to say that? Let me tell you. You know, the best brother I heard from it came out of Dallas, Texas. Richard Guyton, heck of a short order cook. You know what he told me? A lot of brothers running around here thinking that they geniuses, but they don't understand is these ideas are floating out there. You just like a damn antenna. You lock in and get it. If you don't do nothing with it, don't think the signal stopped there. It's been going on for years, nigga. So if you think because you tune in for a split second and you're a genius, again, I said, how can you think that you so important when you watch people leave this realm and ain't nothing stopped? Your importance is your relationships and what you stand for. Matter of fact, I laugh because people tell me all the time, man, I didn't know that was you to do so and so. Why did you have to know? My mother got mad at me because I on my birthday for a long time, my big thing was I do stuff for older people in the neighborhood. A couple of people passed away and she at their funeral talking to him. I didn't know you fixed Miss so-and-so, so-and-so. Why didn't you tell me? It won't for to be telling you. I did something for somebody that did something for me 30 years ago. I gave back. You know, they were the people that looked out for me. I come from this community. So I went over there and did something for them. I was supposed to report into you. I did an act of kindness.
That's the age of social media. Nobody wants to be the silent hand anymore. Everybody got to be on the main stage. You know, we grew up in the era of like you was just a team player, and when you wasn't a team player, maybe you got Suge Knight at the Source Awards calling you out. Nowadays, that's a foreign concept because everybody got to be recognized for everything they do. And I would just like people to hone it in and get back to the aspect of why did you join this fight? Did you join this fight for your own individual accomplishments and achievements and some more accolades on your resume? Or did you join this fight because you understand the Black radical tradition, our history and legacy in this country and what we need to be whole, right? And like that's the concepts I would like to get back to. All of these award ceremonies and patting yourself on the back. I mean, one night, and I won't get too much into this, but one night there was a small victory, and you would have thought that the checks was being mailed out. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. So we just got to get back to the bare roots of things, and get back to pushing this thing along, and not trying to get acknowledged for everything.
I got blocked. I don't know. Might have been the same night because there's been several of them that I can cite, but I would tell you, I got blocked because they telling me about cheering. I told them, look, I come from a generation that don't do very well at pep rallies, but if you want to do a prep rally to take action, that's what I do. PREP. I'll work with you all day on strategizing. And here's another one to get me. I said it in that panel meeting. I don't understand none of these people that once they present an idea and you start interrogating or critiquing it, oh, you one of them so and so. Hold on. The topic of conversation is what you laid on the table here. All of a sudden, you are expert on me. You little old look. Hold on, man. Do you think I'm gonna apologize for being here almost 7 decades when I done seen that the alternative ain't that good? Ain't none of my missing friends come back and told me a damn thing about another life. The only time they come up is when the memory of them is inside this 7 inches. So you can't embarrass me by switching the conversation from your concept to your personal take on me. They tell me you ain't serious. And a lot of these people out here ain't serious. If you got a concept or idea, explain it to me. If I can't wrap my head around it and you the expert, you ought to be able to break it down at least the basic 6th grade level. But oh, goddamn it, you call me. And I ain't call you nothing. I'm just telling you talking some weak ass shit. As a matter of fact, that's not him. Sometimes he try to block me on the DMs when he on Twitter Spaces because I won't get no microphone, but I be wearing him out. Hey man, tell him this. Ask him this. Look, ask
No,
him
it
about
ain't.
this.
I just sometimes when I'm on Twitter Spaces, my phone it just be black on the screen, right? So I leave it there until I unlock the screen, and even then, the Twitter Space screen is up. So it's not until I pull the screen down that I'll see that I got a notification for a message. But I'll be seeing your messages though for the most part. I might
That's
not see
why
them until an hour later, but I see them eventually.
I'll be laughing. Look, I'll be laughing because I'm waiting for you to tell me, nigga, why don't you just put this shit back on your phone?
Yeah. No, one time I did say that. I was like, you can't jump on this stage though. You could get right up on this stage and go in.
You know, I can get dumb real easy, man.
Yeah, but I would love to have you on more and just, have like a discussion as opposed to, just coming in at the end of a discussion and chopping it up. We talked about that before. So we just got to just work it in some way. On my end, I absolutely have no problems with it. Whenever you're ready.
I'm going to leave a public teaser. You're going to have to hit me up when you got 10 or 15 minutes because I ain't want to put out no numbers and stuff. But see, when you get played and you get that what unexpected draft pick, you got picked up, and then you find out that 3-year contract, you have no rider, so you actually go at the end of the season. Wait until you hear what came for round 2. And look, the organization I'm talking about, they put out the numbers about how much money they spent. They bragged about spending something like $1.14 million in one quarter in 2022. Then they doubled the amount of money they was going to give out in 2023. But look, the people that got real fat at the well got barely 20% of what they got initially. So I guess they wasn't what they wasn't productive for the season. I'm just saying.
I don't know.
They went from superstar to scrub. That's all. I'm just trying to. I'm gonna check with Shannon Sharp and see what that's all about.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of remove myself from certain situations.
I ain't trying to put you in it. I'm just telling you what the facts is.
No doubt.
People told me how dumb I was, and I'm saying, well, hold on. Usually, if you get money from an organization and you improving and producing, what you get the next time around don't go down, do it. I'm just saying. Especially if
I don't know. I don't know.
Especially if they done double the amount of money they're giving out.
I mean,
and you one of 31 select organization, how your money go down? Yeah. Yeah, sound like some of that Best Buy Friday bait and switch.
Well, maybe they doing the right thing, and they don't, and that donor doesn't want them to do the right thing, so they penalize them to try to get them.
I should have got off when I saw his face moving. You're just such a kind-hearted individual. Look, wait a minute. You know what? Did you see that documentary on Clarence Thomas yet?
No.
You got to make yourself look at it. It's one of the best.
What is it on?
On a Black American. Frontline did one on him.
And so that's ABC?
Frontline is one of them. I don't know. PBS, I believe. Frontline.
Oh, yeah.
But look, Josh, I ain't trying to put you down, man. I'm just saying, Clarence started out, he wanted to be a man of the cloth, too. Clarence Thomas. And the irony of him, I make fun of this. That couple, as much as people laugh, that couple best exemplifies what America is all about. You got a poor Black man from Pinpoint that ended up in Harvard and Yale and has decided that it's not the white folks that created the system. It's a policy called affirmative action that taints his college degrees and his like, wait a minute. And the woman he's married to comes up from the roots of the John Birch Society. and they are the power couple in DC. That's a hell of a place in America.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
was
you got look. I
6
put up a
days
few
ago.
short clips in the Twitter thing, so you can get a 6-minute clip or a 16-minute one to get a sample. But I mean, look, it's so ridiculous, and when you find out it ain't nothing changed because money is what it's all about. That man is a what, second black Supreme Court justice, and he said he didn't know how he had to report a $500,000 junket around the world paid for by a donor.
Now I've been following all of that.
Now I'm saying, but here's the funny part. That actually came out, I think, originally about him getting like a $19,000 Bible. I think that was around 2013, 2014. And I said then, that ain't all that Negro's getting, but I had no idea that like my man Roy Woods Jr. said, he owned that nigga.
Yeah.
Be strong, brother. I'm gonna let y'all go.
All right, man.
Keep putting in that work.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
Thank you for coming through. We're gonna build. We're gonna definitely build, man. Shout out to the OG Otis, man. Everybody that's been in this space knows that he's been in this space since the beginning of it as well. And you know, yeah, I got that pulled up. I might actually watch that tonight. You know, that Frontline documentary, and it was done 6 days ago. So, and speaking of the Supreme Court, right, which has been the theme of tonight's discussion, along with this word construction, Clarence Thomas actually, in my opinion, kind of threw us a bone with that decision out of New York with that Second Amendment gun right case when he invoked the name of the freedmen and showed us some history that we didn't know about our rights as gun owners, and the fact that we did have the power during Reconstruction, the freedmen, like he says this in the court case, to carry our weapons. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, and I'm going to watch it. I know it's about corruption and all of that stuff as well, and a little bit of the life story. I think Clarence Thomas is a strange character. He's somebody that I do not vibe with, but every so often he says something or does something that's right and exact. And, you know, sometimes that's all you need as you're moving forward, particularly in this fight, as we're moving forward. That thing that he did with the freedmen in that Second Amendment rights case out of New York by invoking the name of the freedmen, and then we're seeing the name freedmen being invoked in the Supreme Court cases of affirmative action with Harvard and the University of North Carolina. So
yeah, regarding that, Clarence Thomas and you know, Clarence Supreme Clerk or whatever. If you listening, we hit up Brown Jackson's clerk, hit up Kavanaugh's clerk. They got the fire. They got that BTP, United Sons of Daughters and Freedmen, United Sons of Daughters and Freedmen fire, right? They received it on December, I think it was the 19th or the 22nd, 2022. If you need it, if they can't find it, you can email Josh at USADOF, and that will break down exactly what you need to do as far as doing right by the freedmen in the Supreme Court moving forward. We submitted that document, and one of these days we're gonna break it down. I don't know if we already shared that, but one of these days we're gonna read through that, and because what we don't need is a Supreme Court ruling to come out, and the Supreme Court ruling is solidifying something that we need. You know, it's solidifying the conflation between race and the black, let's put it this way, the black race and the freedmen status. We don't need that. That's wrong. And when you're coming out with your ruling to decide on the Supreme Court case with the University of North Carolina and Harvard, and Kavanaugh is saying that special benefits going to descendants of slaves is different than they're not getting the special benefits just because of race, but they're getting it because they're descendants of slaves, and that does not violate the racial discrimination standard. You need to understand that. You need to understand that, and you need to rule in favor of that. That's what it is. If you, like I said, if you need some issue, if you need some guidance on that, you can go ahead and hit up. Tell your clerk to hit up Kavanaugh's clerk, hit up Brown Jackson's clerk. They got it. Or please email one of us over here. You can go to usadof.org and hit the contact button and get in contact with us.
Absolutely. And I'll put up on the screen our letter to the Supreme Court, which I put the link to in the comment section. Make sure y'all check that out, man. This was a powerful letter. And I think we should break that down one day. Otis said, he said, I'm willing to bet you will discuss it after viewing it, talking about the Clarence Thomas documentary. Yeah, we might do that, actually. I think that it needs to be done. Like I said, we are just in a different stratosphere. I just checked Twitter, right? Just because I know we're about to get off of here. And I see that they got spaces going on. So Luke, the rapper, who's a Democratic shill and an absolute reparation obstructionist, he's doing something, and he rolls with the Democratic crew, and it's talking about he's talking about somebody, and then somebody else has a space going at Luke the rapper, and this is like what are we doing here? Because it's crazy because everybody knows Luke, right, as the rapper, et cetera, et cetera. But his name in the Twitter sphere got popping because of the post that he made about reparations. And instantly we watched the black women, especially in the Democratic Party, come in and put that boy in a sleeper hole and say, don't you ever get out ahead of us again. And we watched him backtrack, and he's been a Democratic shill ever since. Now, I say all that to say it's crazy because I've had conversations with black conservatives about reparations over the past year. Of course, the conversations was a little rocky at first. Now they're smooth. There's a mutual understanding, and to use a term that they use, voluntary association. And I actually have my best conversations outside of when we're doing our thing with the black conservatives. I can't recall a discussion that I had with actual black Democrats on Twitter or Clubhouse, now that I think about it, that was positive. It was almost always negative because the black Democrats are in line with Narcan and Cobra and this mythical idea of Pan-Africanism, and the conversation never advances past us having some intellectual duel where they're getting absolutely beat up on because they don't know the subject. The only thing they know is that they got to push these narc and Cobra talking points, and we're not trying to have that or hear that at all. Anyway, I want to stress what I said earlier about we are. I'm glad Ibrahim jumped on, because when you see what we're doing, honest Sister Antonia, when you see what we're doing as Be the Power in the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, you can clearly see our direction. We are trying to win. And of course we talk about our place, but we talk about that among ourselves. It's not nothing that we go out and brag about. Some of the people that Otis was referencing. I remember one day we got invited to come on a Zoom call, and it's just one person that was hosting the Zoom. Like I was just certain people we just was never really feeling like that, but we tolerated them because we in the same space, and you know, you got to tolerate certain individuals. And so she was hosting the Zoom, and she brought us on, and it seemed like she was trying to flex on us. I'll never forget, because Logic was hyped up. Logic was on go mode. Logic was like, oh, they trying to stun on us. I'm about to go in. And it was funny because all of the people that they invited on, they wind up shouting out BTP. Like, I didn't understand why we was invited to come on and have a brag session. Like, basically, what work are you putting in? Right? We want you to show or share. And it wasn't like it was if I'm not mistaken, I don't think it was a public broadcast, Josh. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that. It could have been, but I don't think that it was. So I was, you know, I took it as like, all right, are they trying to flex on us in some kind of way? Anyway, we get on the Zoom, and damn near everybody that get on the Zoom, and they're like, yeah, you know, BTP, yada, yada, yada. And shout out to BTP because the education that they provided caused us to look at certain things. And we was able to do this out where I was sitting there cracking up laughing. I was sitting there, and I could see Logic's face was still locked in. He was still like, I'm about to scold them for asking us to come on here to try to flex on us in some, you know, in some kind of way. And so he like never really broke character, but I wasn't on. I chose not to come on. And it speaks to what Ibrahim was saying, that some people just really want to have like these bragging. They want to have bragging rights over other people in the reparationist push, in the reparationist movement, I should say. We don't do what we do for bragging rights. Should there be healthy competition? Absolutely. There should be healthy competition, but we should be able to draw from each other. I'm not going to be afraid if I lose a shoe along the race to ask one of my fellow track runners that I'm competing against, can I get one of your shoes because out of your bag, because I don't have my bag and my shoe came off about 10 yards back and I don't want to slow down. You know, but there's some people that's out there, they just trying to be in competition with you and will brag about the stuff that they got done. And I'm like, well, technically BTP, you know, you came and I ain't gonna go there, not right now anyway. So I just wanted to kind of,
and you know where I'm at. You know, hey
I
man,
know
look,
where you at. I know where you
I'll
at.
say this. I'll say this. You know, one of the things that
Peacemaker
I've,
Josh.
but no, it's not even so much that. It's the
I
bigger
know,
picture. It's the
I know.
bigger picture. Like you know, when you go back and you look at some of the old black and white videos and some of the videos, and you listen to some of the conversations and contentions that certain people from the civil rights movement was having with other people in the civil rights movement. And when we look at it, we like, man, what y'all arguing over, man? Yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
what was the issue, man? Like you still got to fight. The same devil is still on both of y'all back. You know what I'm saying? And whatever issues that you had right now, that's really like it's short sighted for how you feeling right now, and the actions that you're taking against each other, and you know how you feeling compared to one another. It is really minuscule in terms of how you need to move and operate so you can win, you know, and that's assuming that everybody some people, and during that time, you notice they really didn't even believe that they can win. They just believed that they wanted to feel like they were doing something, and that's fine as long as you know you were helping to take steps to move things forward, to keep the momentum, to keep the excitement up, and to keep people engaged in the process. So I say, man, you know, yeah, you know, as long as people are moving things forward, as long as you doing things in the right way, you're not taking things the wrong way, you know, a lot of the stuff we're going to look back 10, 20, 30 years from now and be like, yeah, this person was on some stuff, but, you know, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we ain't gonna feel that strongly about it. Is what I'm saying.
I hear you, Josh. I hear you, bro.
Yeah, people got time. They
bless
got
your
time to
heart.
get. They got
Bless your
time.
heart.
You gotta get it right. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get it right. And those people that don't like, my saying it always, time is gonna either promote or expose.
That's right.
So, you know, if it's really in your heart to do right by this thing, you're gonna get yourself right. You're gonna, you know, do what you need to do, and you're gonna come back around. Or you're gonna get exposed, and you know, you're gonna get trampled over. So
That's right. That's right. But bless your heart, Josh. Bless your heart. Gotta love my man Josh, boy. I tell you, gotta love Josh. Josh be talking me out of a lot of stuff, though. I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes I don't be trying to hear him. I'll be like, man, I'm not trying to hear you right now, bro. But it is what it is. So look, fam, man, this was a very good, productive conversation. I might actually clip this last part. I don't know what my camera looks like, really fuzzy right now. I don't know what's wrong with this thing. But this was a really, really good discussion. And you know, we set out to show how the government basically allowed freedmen to be violated and persecuted in this country. And our main theme today was construction, judicial construction, whereas the justices, through dicta, which is their judicial opinion, get to construe statutes and laws in a way that is suitable depending on the situation. In our case, it was only suitable to their purpose of white supremacy, as opposed to doing it for the reasons why, you know, it was supposed to be done for. So, you know, definitely. So yeah, man. I'll make sure y'all go back there, check it. I might try to clip the end of this discussion because it still was a powerful discussion when Otis jumped on, and see if I could break it up into 2 separate videos, because we've been on this thing going on 3 hours. It's crazy because I kind of figured that was gonna happen tonight. I figured after my breakdown and, you know, our breakdown, I didn't know if anybody was going to jump on tonight. After our breakdown, that it was, you know, we was going to have a discussion if somebody actually jumped on, and we was going to go 3 hours tonight. So it's been a good discussion, and I just want to shout out to everybody for listening in. Shout out to the OG Otis for coming through and giving us some wisdom, you know, and I look forward to having more discussions with the OG, just like really one-on-one sessions where we could talk about 45 minutes, kind of come up with some topics, because I'll tell y'all right now, it's funny. Otis like would be sending me stuff. This was maybe a year, 2 years back. And I used to be like looking at this. I'm like, why is Otis sending me all of this crazy stuff? Right. But then I start clicking on the stuff and I'm like, oh, okay. This is not crazy stuff. This is actually good stuff. But he's at a certain level with his what he consumes in this fight, and everybody is like that to some degree. They're at a certain level in what they consume, and how we all feel it adds to the conversation so that we can have a greater understanding about XYZ when it comes to this topic that we are so passionate about this fight that we are passionately fighting for, not just ourselves, but our progeny. So with that said, yo, Josh, you got any last words you want to share before we get up out of here? All right.
nah, bro. I just gotta say, stay grow. You know, continue to grow. Everybody's got to continue to grow. What I'm saying is self-reflect. Um, you know, master the process of taking information, learning the information, practicing getting it straight, then teaching other people the information. You know, we that's what we do. You know, find your people, right? Find your people who have the same type of passion, the same type of interest in insatiable appetite to continue to get this thing right and to push for reparations and stay close to those people, because those are the type of people that can, and you can grow together in this thing, and you can build it out and become more impactful in your community and more impactful in sharing information. And because otherwise, you know, otherwise it's the sand, you building a sand castle next to the beach. You know, you can be on it for a little while, and then life happens. You know, weapons of mass destruction happen. You know, you get the job, you get the family, and all that stuff is important parts of life. But you know, for me, I still take parts. I still have to take time and sacrifice, and I don't look at it as a sacrifice because it's just part of a sense of personal responsibility to continue to grow and continue to spread the message in this thing. Um, yeah, I just say get your people, keep them close, and keep building, keep growing, and let's keep fighting, man. We gotta keep fighting because only one thing is for certain, man. Time is gonna continue to move on, and you know, I don't know if y'all listen to have kids. Your kids are gonna have to deal with the consequences of this thing, and your family. I'm looking at my family, and it ain't a whole lot of wealth there. I look at other people's families; it's not the same thing. And why is that? We already know why that is. But something has to be done with that. You know, the trajectory of downward mobility. It can't continue this way. It can't continue this way. You know, unless we're just gonna be finished and be done with it. So I'm not ready to be finished and be done with it. I'm still in the fight. I would advise you to stay in the fight too. Peace.
That's right. That's right. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We can't be stopped. So that's where we
Here's
at with it.
Freedmen for life.
Freedmen for life. You feel me? So look, man, we had a good discussion tonight. Go back for those of you who came in late. Make sure to go back and watch the beginning of this live stream. We had an important conversation. We pulled up some important information because we feel that we are helping to lead the way in this reparations movement, and we are uncompromising. So we have to get it right because when it's all said and done, and it will be said, and it will be done, we're gonna be the ones that what they say when the dust settles and the smoke clear, we're gonna be the last one standing, family. Us. And when I say us, I don't just mean BTP, United Sons and Daughters of Freemen. I mean those of us that's on the same exact page, those handful of us that know what it takes to get this thing over the hump. And we're doing that. We're moving in that direction. We cannot afford to do anything less. Be on the lookout for some more things coming from out of the United Sons and Daughters of Freemen. We're doing a membership drive in June. We're going to be opening up our chapters. We have several that are already opened up. We have in some places. We're just not announcing everything as of yet, but we have some more that's coming. We have some more that's coming, but after Juneteenth is when we're starting our membership drive. And after that, we are looking to take off. So if you would like to become a part of the United Sons and Daughters of Freedmen, if you would like to start a chapter, if you feel that this work that we're doing is the work of our ancestors and that this work is not only going to get us reparations, but is going to push us over the top, because that's what we feel, then come rock out with us, fam. Come rock out with us. Y'all know how to contact us. My personal email is Naheem at usadof.org. The organizational email is Freedmen at usadof.org. You can hit up anybody that's in BTP. Josh at usadof.org. Ibrahim at USA. You might not like me. I want to rock with them, but I just don't like that Naheem guy. But I'll rock with them as long as I don't got to deal with Naheem. Cool. Ali at usadof.org. You know, hit one of the bros up. And we got a couple sisters as well who are on our board. We're going to be updating the website really, really soon. We working, family. We're not just sitting around not doing anything. We are working. It's a bunch of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I know y'all hear me say that all the time. I don't talk about it because I don't like to talk about the stuff that I'm doing in public. And, you know, we just kind of talked about that earlier. And when you heard the conversation with Otis and Ibrahim, and some people that just really want to be out front to say, me, look at what we did. Look at what we did. Y'all see BTP, even in victories that other people achieved and we got shout outs, we kept, because, you know, they achieved the victory because of the work that BTP put in. We still kept things humble. We kept things very, very humble. And that's the energy that we're moving with. So, again, if you want to join the email list, usadof.org. Go to the website. We're going to be pumping out a lot of information. A lot of things are actually coming out through the website. And we're going to go from there, family. So I'll leave you all with the motto of the platform, which is don't just fight the power, become the power. And then and only then will you have the power to make a change. And with that, I say peace.